Chapter 1788, A Great Sect Appears. Being stared at so menacingly by the Empress, Qianzhao Tian actually couldn't manage to feel the slightest bit of antipathy. He only felt that even a rebuke from the Empress was a kind of happiness. Just look, others weren't even qualified to get a word from the Empress. Pay, how could he think this way? Qianzhao Tian hurriedly strengthened his will. He was a king tier of the present generation, not a masochist, so why would he feel happy from being looked down on by another? But looking at the Empress's perfect, flawless figure, the flames of his anger could not be stoked. He could only force out, "Miss, could it be that it isn't the truth that I am saying?" Shua, the Empress moved again, shooting out a palm strike. This time, Qianzhao Tian was already prepared, so he would naturally not be retreating in panic. Instead, he moved to parry her incoming blow. Pang, pang, pang. They fought fiercely in the ship's hold. Thankfully, the ship's hold was sturdy enough, and could withstand the bombardment of power from them, but as for those tables, cups, and paintings, they were all shattered into dust with a sweep of the powerful winds brought to rise from their exchange. Stop. Stop. Everyone hurriedly intervened and tried to calm things down. Seeing a fierce battle erupt in such a narrow space, they had no choice but to make a move to parry, and it would be extremely easy for a battle royale to arise. They were all king tiers or similar, and the moment a battle royale occurred, it would definitely be normal for deaths to occur. How could the Empress, being as willful as she was, possibly listen to the persuasion of others? She continued to attack. There was nothing anyone could do. They could only join forces in restraining Qianzhao Tian. Pa. The Empress was not reasonable at all, and only stopped when she had slapped Qianzhao Tian's face 7 times, looking like she was just treating him with contempt, and could not bother to pay him any further regard. She was really too proud, but she was also very alluring. Everyone looked at the Empress, then turned to look at bewitching Maiden Row, and only felt that it was really hard to decide. They both had their own unique traits, but they were both extremely enticing. Damn it. Qianzhao Tian's arms and legs had all been held back, so he could only receive these 7 slaps from the Empress head-on. Furthermore, it was not a slap that was delivered from an actual hand, but rather a hand formed of origin power. Otherwise, he could at least comfort himself a bit that he had had skin contact with the Empress. He wanted to fight again, but having so many people restrain him, how could he possibly succeed? He could only become furious almost to the point of throwing up blood. After a while, he calmed down as well. He had now experienced a loss, but Ling Han was going to experience a loss against Qianzhao Yuan too, and it was going to be an even worse loss than his. This grudge would be vented through Ling Han. The Empress was really so charismatic that even if Qianzhao Tian had been beaten, he could choose not to directly get his vengeance through her. Only now did everyone release Qianzhao Tian. Then, they again began to watch the battle proceeding on the chessboard. Then, all of them released exclamations of ah, and yeah, as expressions of astonishment appeared on their faces. That was because the present situation had actually taken a drastic change. Ling Han was holding a sword, and was currently fighting fiercely with Qianzhao Yuan, not falling into the slightest disadvantage at all. Impossible. It was naturally possible. After the Divine Demon Sword had been improved to the level of 2-star pseudo-divine metal, its battle prowess could be compared to that of Ling Han himself. This was a future celestial tool, so how could it not be awesome? When man and sword worked together, its might was astonishing. However, this alone was not enough to defeat Qianzhao Yuan. Ling Han threw out all kinds of celestial techniques, 6 arms simultaneously casting banishing technique, extermination lightning, darkness of the paramount night, flying dragon shadow hands, and tide of the ages, and accompanied with lightning flash. One man seemed to have become 1,000, bombarding Qianzhao Yuan like mad. Even so, Qianzhao Yuan was still able to respond calmly. Several 100 million years of cultivation had definitely not gone to waste. Was Ling Han not able to win without using 9 Heavens Flame and Xianin Source Water? Ling Han pondered. He was treating the two like an ultimate technique that could be used to turn a dire situation around, and was unwilling to use them easily. After all, this was only a spar, so if he used them now, those people outside would be prepared, and if he fought with them in the future, he would definitely be unable to catch them off guard. One could definitely not underestimate a king tier. Then, he just limited it to this. In any case, his physique was tough, so he could completely fight like this until the end of time, but the moment Xianzhao Yuan had the slightest bit of carelessness, and was struck by the divine demon's sword just once, he would really be in for a bout of suffering. Hong, long, all of a sudden, a deafening sound rang out from outside. Everyone in the ship's hold looked at one another, and hurriedly ran out, arriving on the ship's deck outside. Above them, two massive battleships had appeared. Their battleships were already very big, but compared with these two vessels, they immediately became juniors, and were only about 1/10 of their size, appearing incredibly unpresentable. Ascending Origin Tier-Level Battleship. 4-star Force. The faces of these young king tiers all changed as they showed an expression of shock. Indeed, 4-star forces had also arrived before for the opening of the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm, and in fact, there had even been parties from Celestial King-level great sects and clans, but that was something that had happened a great many billion years ago. At least, the 4-star force and 5-star forces had not sent parties here in the recent few 100 billion years. They had not imagined that a 4-star force would arrive once more this time round. Even though 3-star forces were only inferior to 4-star forces by one level, if a 4-star force wanted to destroy a 3-star force, they only had to send out an Ascending Origin Tier Elite, or an Ascending Origin Tier level battleship, and they would be able to accomplish the feat easily. You might be wondering why 3-star forces didn't buy an Ascending Origin Tier level battleship too? Ho, firstly, this price was definitely not something that could be afforded by any 3-star force, and secondly, even if a 3-star force gained an unexpected wealth, or had saved for countless generations, finally having enough funds, the crux of the matter was that the massive military pavilion was not willing to sell it to them. 3-star forces could purchase 3 levels of battleship severing mundane tier, dividing soul tier, and immortal palace tier, but a 2-star force could only buy severing mundane tier and dividing soul tier level vessels. Thus, an Ascending Origin Tier level battleship could only be bought by 4-star and 5-star forces. This was the privilege that was possessed by elites. The massive military pavilion would definitely not break this balance of power. In front of a 4-star force, even if they were holy sons, holy daughters, and clan heirs, so what? They could only lower their proud heads in submission. I wonder whose ship it is. Everyone raised their head to look, but there was a killing formation laid out on the battleship, and they could not stare at it directly at all unless their cultivation level was strong enough. The battleship stopped. There were clearly only 2, but they cast a very large shadow, enshrouding all the battleships beneath them. Merely this fact was a strong enough display of their domineering attitude. But the over 12 battleships below did not dare to express any objection at all. If the two sides clashed, that would be like an Ascending Origin Tier Elite making his move, being capable of instantly killing over a dozen immortal palace tiers. In the celestial realm, no, anywhere, power was everything. Show. A man and woman descended from the battleship. The man was dressed in white, with lightning entwined all around his body. This was not ordinary lightning, but rather divine lightning. A mere living being, and he was actually wrapped in divine lightning? The Empress's eyes immediately narrowed. This was a divine fetus, natural lightning physique. What was going on here? Was divine fetus so cheap and ordinary? She looked towards the woman, and her eyes involuntarily narrowed again. This woman was dressed in a tight-fitting suit of red, her long black locks were tied up in a thick braid. Her pretty face was extremely enchanting, and she could be considered not to be the slightest bit inferior to bewitching Maiden Row, though as she had not cultivated charm techniques like the latter, and was also a natural charm physique, it could be said that her level of captivation was not just a bit lower. Even so, she could still be considered a top-grade beauty. This was not the reason for the Empress narrowing her eyes. She was not as exquisite as herself, so how could she actually stun her with her beauty? What she was stunned about was that this woman was ethereal and clear. Even though she was clearly standing there, she was like an ethereal bloom that existed only in fantasy, something that could not be grasped and was unattainable. Ethereal divine fetus. Another divine fetus, and one that was similarly incredibly rare, possessing the element of space. Chapter 1789, Genuine Holy Sun. For divine fetuses had actually appeared in this place. It was extremely inconceivable. Holy Sun Changfeng. It was unclear who suddenly called this out, even his voice was trembling. King Tears should be afraid of nothing, yet now his voice was actually shaking. Just how stunned was he? Changfeng? Changfeng? Hiss. Being thus reminded, the others mulled over the exclamation for a while before expressions of shock appeared. Luo Changfeng, the holy son of Thundercloud Palace, and Thundercloud Palace was a celestial king tier force. This was not unusual then. To become the holy son of a celestial king tier great sect, if you were not a divine fetus, you would not be able to even bring yourself to sit in this position. Yet they had never imagined that the opening of the hidden dragon mystery realm this time round was capable of attracting the holy son of a celestial king tier sect. Another person stared at that beauty dressed in a tight-fitting suit of red, and exclaimed in a stammering voice, Zai Bingyun. Zai was a clan that had existed for who knew how many years, and the founder of the Zai clan was still alive even today. That was a being that was truly immortal, an invincible king of the celestial realm. That was right, the Zai clan was also a celestial king tier force. Gods, the heirs of two great celestial king-level forces had actually arrived at the same time. It was no wonder that a 4-star battleship had been mobilized. The celestial realm did not have any 5-star battleships, because no one was capable of building them. Celestial kings were the strongest, and aside from the source power that was produced by the heaven and earth, what else could match them? These were two true king tiers, not only in terms of strength, but also background. Luo Changfeng swept an eye over the crowd, and showed a smile, appearing to be very easygoing, and said, Everyone, Fairy Bingyun and I haven't disturbed you, have we? No, of course not. Everyone hurriedly shook their heads. Even if they had, who would actually dare say it out loud? We heard that a mystery realm just happened to be opening here, and coincidentally, Fairy Bingyun and I were passing by, so we were thinking, why not we, too, enter to learn from the experience, Luo Changfeng explained smilingly. He really did not have the airs that a holy son should have, but should anyone think that he was a pushover just because of this, they would really be too naive. And only he could speak so casually about a mystery realm. It should be known that the hidden dragon mystery realm was incredibly dangerous, and the slightest bit of carelessness could endanger one's life, but he actually said that they had just been passing by and dropped over for fun. Seeing Luo Changfeng being so amiable, everyone's initial expression of nervousness gradually relaxed, and they began to strike up a conversation with Luo Changfeng respectively. This was the holy son of a celestial king tier sect. If they really garnered his favor, they would really manage to stabilize and strengthen their positions as holy sons and heirs. Luo Changfeng was really easy to deal with. He would always be smiling no matter whom he was talking to. On the other hand, Zai Bingyun was much more aloof, and would present a cool, indifferent demeanor to whomsoever she was facing, unable to bear sparing even one word. And this is Fairy Ro? Luo Changfeng looked towards bewitching Maiden Ro. Even if he was the holy son of a celestial king tier great sect, he still showed an expression of being incredibly stunned, and the smile on his face also became more pronounced. Fairy Ro is indeed as beautiful as a celestial maiden, as beautiful as a peach. I have admired you for a very long time, and now that I have met you, I see that you truly live up to your reputation. Bewitching Maiden Ro only offered a reserved smile. Even a small sect had its pride. It was absolutely impossible that she would take the initiative to throw herself into his arms just because of a single word from him. She had just cultivated charm techniques, and was not really a famed courtesan from the brothel. It was clear that Luo Changfeng was very interested in bewitching Maiden Ro. Though he was talking to the rest, at least 3 words in every 10 words from him were directed towards bewitching Maiden Ro, and his partiality to her was apparent. Everyone could understand that. Who did not want to keep such a seductive beauty as their mistress? But who among those gathered here did not want to court bewitching Maiden Ro? With their flames of jealousy ignited, distance naturally grew between them and Luo Changfeng. Furthermore, they were all king tiers of the present generation. Usually, it would be others that would be courting their favor, and they were indeed not accustomed to courting the favor of another. Thus, the atmosphere gradually cooled. Luo Changfeng smiled slightly, and suddenly said, "Since the mystery realm has not opened yet, why don't we spar? You are using this trick too." Everyone had come here for the sake of bewitching Maiden Ro, wanting to teach Ling Han a lesson under the guise of a spar, but now Luo Changfeng had also suggested having a spar. It was clear he had an ulterior motive, and wanted to show off his skill in front of bewitching Maiden Ro through a spar. In terms of background, there was not one person here that could compare to Luo Changfeng, but what counted in a spar was actual strength. As king tiers, which of them would admit that they were inferior to another? Immediately, everyone looked eager to give it a try. Luo Changfeng smiled faintly, and said, "I have just advanced into the 3rd Severance. How about this then? Both 3rd Severance and 4th Severance can challenge me, but those below 3rd Severance should just watch. I am Qianzhao Tian, peak stage of the 3rd Severance. Please provide guidance, Holy Sun." Qianzhao Tian was the first to issue a challenge. Previously, he had been given a really hard time by the Empress, and was presently in anxious need of redeeming his reputation. Of course, even if he was capable of defeating Luo Changfeng, he would still be merciful, and maintain a situation of neither being superior to the other. In this way, he would redeem his pride, and Luo Changfeng would not be in an awkward position either. Luo Changfeng stood, his hands crossed behind his back, and said, "Make your move then." Qianzhao Tian was a little indignant. "We are both in the 3rd Severance, and you are only in the early stage of the 3rd Severance, while I am at the peak stage of the 3rd Severance, so don't you think you are a little too arrogant?" He gave a soft exclamation, and as he channeled his secret techniques, he opened his mouth and spat out a cluster of stars that formed battle blades that struck out towards Luo Changfeng. Luo Changfeng's figure suddenly moved. Everyone could only feel their vision blur for a moment, and saw that Luo Changfeng had already landed a punch on that cluster of stars, directly shattering it. Then, he penetrated the shattered stars deeply, and pang, landed a direct punch on Qianzhao Tian's face. This punch was really too fast. Qianzhao Tian was actually completely unprepared, and directly toppled over, his face facing skywards. Luo Changfeng withdrew his fist, and calmly stated, "Next." Incredibly domineering. With this strike, everyone could feel their scalp go numb from the shock. It should be known that Qianzhao Tian was a young king tier. What kind of concept was this? He should be invincible among his peers, and he should have been able to manage a tie even against other king tiers, or at least the victor should only be decided after a few thousand or tens of thousands of moves later. But now? Luo Changfeng had defeated him with a single move, even if his cultivation level was lower. Just how big was the gap of power between them? How could he be this strong? The Empress's delicate brows rose slightly as fighting spirit blazed in her. This was a supreme king tier that had advanced through striking the heaven and earth, and that was why his battle prowess was so strong, such that he was capable of being invincible even with a gap of a minor level. Furthermore, he was a divine fetus as well. If he further displayed the might of a divine fetus, his battle prowess could increase further. At this moment, no one dared to accept. They were both holy sons and young king tiers, but the gap in battle prowess was like the difference between heaven and earth. This was the holy son that had been produced from a celestial king tier great sect. Bewitching Maiden Ro's beautiful eyes shone. As the saying went, beauties would love valiant men, and in the celestial realm, elites would be respected by all, and no one was an exception to the rule. Bewitching Maiden Ro naturally admired elites as well. To be honest, one would have to at least defeat her in a battle of equals to win her heart, but it was really, really too difficult to accomplish this. She herself was a king tier, and was a divine fetus at that. Even the likes of Fu Gaoyun and Bei Xianming could only yield to her superiority in front of her. It was just that the Purity sect had always had the custom of dealing with matters through words rather than relying on fists. Thus, it was very rare that she had the chance to make a move. Luo Changfeng was definitely stronger than she was in a battle of equals, and it was not just a bit stronger either. This naturally caused a ripple to arise in her heart. Chapter 1790, Luo Changfeng's Might. Just at this moment, the figure of another man immediately barged into her mind. Ling Han. Bewitching Maiden Ro couldn't help but make a comparison between the two of them. In terms of background, that Luo Changfeng was already at the top of the world. Who could be more eye-catching than the holy son of a celestial king tier sect? As for Ling Han, he was only a guest subject of a 3-star force, and this was putting it nicely. In truth, he was just a follower. What was worth comparing? In terms of cultivation level, it was still Luo Changfeng that was superior. He was in the 3rd Severance, while Ling Han was a 2nd Severance. But in terms of natural talent of cultivation, Ling Han was definitely not inferior to the other. In terms of comprehension ability and inventiveness, Ling Han was completely superior, at least for the moment. It was just a period of 2 hours, and he had already completely restored an amazing ancient technique, so how astonishing was that? She had also cultivated this flame control technique these few days, and though she had only gained a superficial grasp of the technique, she was already deeply stunned by this cultivation technique. It definitely surpassed any other cultivation technique that she had previously cultivated. Which meant that it had to be ascending origin tier level at least. Just think about it, how terrifying was Ling Han's comprehension ability? It was extremely possible that this guy would advance into the ascending origin tier. Becoming a celestial king was too hard. Even if Luo Changfeng was the holy son of a celestial king tier sect, the possibility of his advancing into celestial king tier in future was incredibly close to zero. The highest possibility was that he would become an ascending origin tier elite. In this aspect, Ling Han was completely not inferior to Luo Changfeng in any way. After all, the biggest deciding factor on the path of cultivation was still one's individual strength. Luo Changfeng swept an eye over everyone's faces, very pleased with the look of bewitching Maiden Ro's gaping small mouth and bright eyes, but when his eyes passed over the Empress, he couldn't help but pause. This woman actually gave him a feeling of having unfathomable depths. In fact, even his divine fetus was stunned for some unknown reason, just like how he felt when he saw the bewitching Maiden Ro. Could it be that she, too, was a divine fetus? He was the holy son of a top-tier sect, and naturally knew that to be able to cause a tremor in his divine fetus, it was highly possible that the other was also a divine fetus. This was a resonance of Tao. Furthermore, this woman's figure was really too perfect. Though she was not showing her face, her bearing was excellent, causing his heart to throb wildly. He had actually just spotted her. Luo Changfeng withdrew his gaze, smiled calmly, and asked, "Who is next?" Everyone exchanged looks. It appeared that no one was going to accept the challenge. Qianzhao Tian was a 3rd Severance peak stage, and a top-grade king tier at that, but even he was no match for Luo Changfeng. Then, even if it was a 4th Severance early stage, or middle stage, so what? It probably would still be very difficult for them to become a worthy opponent for him. Thus, everyone's eyes finally landed on 3 people, Beiyu Xiong, Lin Fang, and Ting Senator. They were all at the peak stage of the 4th Severance, and were all king tiers. If even they were unable to oppose Luo Changfeng, then Luo Changfeng was really invincible within the severing mundane tier. Just the thought of that caused their scalps to go numb. It should be known that Luo Changfeng presently was only in the 3rd Severance, and he had furthermore just advanced into this cultivation level recently, yet he could actually be as strong as this. He struck the heaven and earth, a king tier said softly, a sliver of reverence in his voice. Striking heaven and earth. These words were not unfamiliar at all to Fu Gaoyun, Beiyu Xiong, and the others, because they had all heard about it. There were only a few difficult challenges on the path of cultivation. Firstly, cultivating to the true pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, which meant creating 10 million stars, and one could lay claim to the title of King tier, advancing to the Severing Mundane tier with this advantage. These young prodigies had all accomplished at least this challenge. The second was a flawless severance, which could allow one to continue maintaining his talent as a King tier. Everyone had also accomplished that. But above a flawless severance, there was an even more superior level, advancing through striking the heaven and earth. It was rumored that this could make a King tier a king among kings. Everyone had made the attempt before, but they had all failed without exception. If they forcibly delivered this strike, then the only thing that would be severed would be their lives. Yet now, a true king had appeared in front of them. If he had not advanced to the Severing Mundane tier by striking the heaven and earth, how could he possibly have defeated Xianzhao Tian with a single move? Bewitching Maiden Rose eyes were even brighter. A supreme king tier that had struck the heaven and earth was a rare existence even in 10,000 generations. I will give it a try. Biyao Xiong stepped out. As a king tier, he naturally possessed an invincible heart. He was also aware that Luo Changfeng would definitely be more freakish than he was, given that he had advanced by delivering a strike at the heaven and earth. But the issue here was that he was a fourth Severance peak stage, and possessed the advantage of more than a single minor level, so was that still insufficient to compensate for the gap between two different types of the Severing Mundane tier? He did not believe it. Please provide guidance, Holy Son Changfeng, he said very politely. Luo Changfeng glanced at him, and said, then let us have our battle outside the ship. Previously, when he had fought with Xianzhao Tian, he had moved immediately, but now he was saying to move their spar out of the ship. This meant that Luo Changfeng was not certain that he could easily defeat Biyao Xiong, and that was why he requested to have their fight in the air. In that way, it would not cause damage to the objects on the ship. The main part of the battleship was not something that they could damage no matter what they did, though. Biyao Xiong leaped out and stood proudly in the skies, multiple streaks of blood-colored aura rising around him. His eyes had also become blood-red, his hands forming bloody claws, with multiple symbols of great Tao emerging on them. Boom, a pair of blood-colored wings suddenly spread out behind him. They stretched out as wide as 3,000 meters, and seemed like they could hide the sky and cover the earth. Blood Crow Tribe? Luo Changfeng appeared slightly surprised. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, and after taking a few steps, he was stepping on air, as if there was an invisible staircase that was supporting him as he continued his advance forwards. It is rumored that when the Blood Crow is angered, blood will spread for 10,000 miles, and I would really be interested to see that. A faint smile curled up the corners of his lips. Biyao Xiong roared out loudly. With a flap of his wings, shwa, 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 innumerable feathers immediately turned into arrows that shot towards Luo Changfeng. That scene was really stunning, and it seemed as if the only things left in this heaven and earth were these feather arrows. They could not be dodged or avoided. Luo Changfeng did not dare be careless. He was a king among kings, and could be invincible even with a gap in cultivation level, but against this kind of opponent that was invincible among his peers like Biyao Xiong, there was not much of a difference in the strength of either side. It would have to depend on how they were using their respective techniques. He propped up his hands. Z, Z, Z. Lightning bolts interwove around him, forming a sphere. Xiao, 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 pa, pa, pa. The feather arrows continued to shoot over, but when they landed on the sphere that was formed from lighting, they all exploded into smithereens. Just at this moment, the sphere suddenly exploded. Boom, everyone could feel a blazing white spread across their vision, their ears lost their hearing, and only a booming sound was left. Then, a frightening wave of power spread out towards them. Thankfully, the battleship was protected by a formation, and it was one as high grade as 3 stars at that. It was definitely not something that could be destroyed by a battle between two severing mundane tiers, so there was no need for the people on board the battleship to dodge. The heaven and earth was completely filled with blazing white lightning, flashing and disappearing, and appeared incredibly terrifying. Biyao Xiong's arms were in a parrying position, and his whole head of hair was raised on ends. It was unknown whether it was due to his soaring fighting spirit, or the fact that he had been electrocuted. Though his clothes were slightly torn, there was not a sliver of a wound on him, and he had not experienced a loss through Luo Changfeng's counterattack. This exchange could be considered to have ended in a tie. Everyone was rendered speechless. He could match even a fourth Severance peak stage king tier like Biyao Xiong. Luo Changfeng was practically strong to an indescribable level. At present, it was definite that Luo Changfeng would not be able to fight a dividing soul tier, but if his cultivation level advanced further by another minor level, then there should be no major issue in him fighting a fourth Severance early stage, right? Hiss, a whole gap of 2 minor levels. Hold on, this kind of person seemed to have appeared already. Suddenly, a figure flashed through everyone's minds. Ling Han. Chapter 1791, Persuasion. Previously, no one had thought that Ling Han was a king tier among king tiers. Because none of the people gathered here could accept this. Oh, they, holy sons and holy daughters, heirs of 3-star forces, had only achieved a flawless severance, yet a country bumpkin from a subordinate force was actually capable of striking the heaven and earth. This was something that could not be accepted by the pride of every king tier. Though they were stunned by how strong Ling Han was, they still continued to find other reasons for it, such as if Ling Han had taken some forbidden medicine, or drawn on the power of some kind of powerful pseudo-celestial tool, or used celestial seals, or something of the sort. Only when Luo Changfeng showed his might did they face up to the reason of striking the heaven and earth. For the holy son of a 5-star sect, wasn't it very ordinary for him to have successfully struck the heaven and earth? Though this was something that everyone envied, it was not something that they could not accept. It also allowed them to turn around to look at Ling Han. Perhaps this was also a freak that had struck the heaven and earth to become a celestial. They had both struck the heaven and earth, but one was the holy son of a 5-star sect, while the other was an unknown character. The difference in difficulty level could be imagined. Ling Han was definitely even more freakish. However, if they were asked to bet on who would be the victor in a battle between Ling Han and Luo Changfeng, it was definite that everyone would still place their bet on Luo Changfeng. Even if Luo Changfeng and Ling Han fought on equal cultivation level, at least 90% of the people here would still bet on Luo Changfeng. Why? The answer was very simple. That was because Luo Changfeng was the holy son of a celestial king tier force. Could the celestial techniques that Ling Han grasped compare to his? They both had the same basis, so the competition would be in celestial techniques, and Ling Han naturally would be completely defeated. Furthermore, Luo Changfeng was a divine fetus, a natural lightning physique, and using the power of the divine fetus, he could be even stronger. This was what being invincible among peers truly meant. Even if bewitching Maiden Ro admitted that Ling Han's inventiveness and comprehension ability was stronger, in a battle of equals, it was still Luo Changfeng who would win. Perhaps only that Zai Bingyun by his side could be a match for him. As she was similarly an heir of a celestial king tier force, her status was equal to the holy sons. Luo Changfeng and Biyao Xiong fought fiercely. One had the advantage in cultivation level, while the other was a king among kings that had struck the heaven and earth, and it was hard to distinguish who was stronger in battle prowess. After fighting for about 7 minutes, Luo Changfeng suddenly showed his might. He had used the power of the divine fetus. Why could he become the holy son of the Thundercloud Palace? That was because he had a natural lightning physique. By birth, he was suited to cultivating the celestial techniques of Thundercloud Palace. And on the other side, the cultivation techniques of the Thundercloud Palace could only be fully unleashed with his power as a divine fetus. Thunder God overflow. Luo Changfeng roared loudly, and his whole person actually enlarged 100 times over, turning into a half-naked hideous giant. His whole body was purple in color and entwined with endless purple divine lightning. He lowered a finger, and aimed directly at Biyao Xiong. Even though this was just a single finger, his present size was really too big. One finger was equivalent to a smashing stone pillar, as if even the dome of the heavens could be pierced through. Biyao Xiong was shocked. Having been locked on, he no longer had the time to dodge. He could only fully activate his physique of a blood crow. Endless bloody light surged out of his body, turning into a long blood-colored spear. He was planning to fight attack with attack. This was the faith of a king tier. What they would always think of was how they were to defeat their opponent, and not how they would have to resign themselves to their fates. Pung! The finger descended, and it was like even the heavens were crushed. Biyao Xiong instantly spat out a mouthful of blood, his whole person sent more than 100 miles backwards. While he soared through the air, the feathers of his wings were still dancing wildly. When he stopped, his feathers had also shattered completely, and he looked incredibly battered. His figure swayed dangerously, his face as pale as paper. Luo Changfeng's face was also slightly pale. A blood spear had stabbed his chest, but it was only the body of lightning that he had formed with his divine fetus. The damage it inflicted on him was not very serious, actually. At least, he was much better off than Biyao Xiong. Ho ho, this battle can be considered a tie, he said smilingly, appearing to be calm and humble as he flew back onto the ship's deck. To him, being able to force a king tier to this point even with a gap of a minor level was already enough. Furthermore, could it be that everyone could not see with their own eyes who was stronger and who was weaker? Thus, there was no need for him to take all the limelight, and completely obliterate his opponent. Holy Sun Changfeng is mighty, I admit that I am no match. Biyao Xiong also shot back. His expression was filled with admiration. Though king tiers had their pride and arrogance, they similarly admired true strength. Luo Changfeng was indeed very strong, and he had to concede that. As expected of Holy Sun Changfeng. Too powerful, no wonder he can become the holy son of a 5-star sect. The others all nodded, not hiding the admiration they felt towards Luo Changfeng in the slightest. Even bewitching maiden Ro's gaze was a little enchanted as Luo Changfeng's heroic figure had barged into her heart. Though Ling Han was very strong, he had not defeated a 4th Severance elite, and even if he could, that was not a king tier among 4th Severance, even if Qian Zhao Yuan's battle prowess was not actually much inferior as compared to Biyao Xiong's. Xiao, a figure suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was precisely Ling Han, and he bore a smile on his face, clearly being in a good mood. That was because he had just put away quite a few pieces of pseudo-divine metal into the Black Tower. Ling Han. When everyone saw him, only then did they remember that there was another battle that was ongoing. But since Ling Han had already appeared, could it be? They hurriedly looked towards the chessboard, and true enough, Qian Zhao Yuan was already sprawled out, one side of his body frozen in cold ice, while the other side was roasted and charred, appearing incredibly bizarre. Taking advantage of the opening created when everyone's attention was focused on Biyao Xiong and Luo Changfeng, Ling Han used the 9 Heavens Flame and Xianin Source Water, and finally defeated Qian Zhao Yuan. He did not worry that the latter would leak the secret either, because he would be unconscious for 8 to 10 years at least, and by the time he regained consciousness, the venture into the hidden dragon mystery realm would have long since ended. Ling Han's target was the Western Celestial Realm. He would not be staying here for very long. Thus, even if others found out that he had grasped extremely strong regulations of fire and water, so what? Ling Han looked towards Luo Changfeng. Though he had been in the world of the chessboard, his sight and hearing had not been disconnected from the outside world. It had only shrunk his body a great many times, and the waves created by the battle would not seep out either. Thus, he was aware of the appearance of Luo Changfeng and Zai Bingyun. Though everyone glanced at Ling Han, they immediately withdrew their gaze. At this point, they would no longer feel jealous, because no one could compete against Luo Changfeng, after all, right? Since that was the case, why should they bother with Ling Han then? Luo Changfeng was like the moon which the stars revolved around. Multiple king tiers surrounded him, and even a great bringer of calamity like bewitching maiden Ro consulted him about cultivation in a reserved manner. It was probable that Luo Changfeng only had to spare a little more effort, the possibility of him winning this femme fatale was very high. After all, he had the name of a holy son of a celestial king tier sect and the might of an invincible king tier. There was practically no way he would fail in courting a woman. Husband, you have to work harder. The Empress arrived at Ling Han's side. What? Ling Han couldn't help but shake his head, and asked, you still haven't dismissed that idea? This person is very likely to become a strong rival for you. The Empress looked at Luo Changfeng. If he was allowed to get hold of the 9 revolutions charm physique, he would leave you behind in his dust in terms of cultivation level. By that time, even if Ling Han was able to become more invincible among his peers than Luo Changfeng, so what? There would still be a gap of quite a few cultivation levels between them, and the latter would be able to crush him with a single finger. The prerequisite of being invincible among one's peers was based on the speed of one's advancement through the cultivation levels. Otherwise, every 3-star force had characters that were invincible in the severing mundane tier, but could they focus their resources on these people? That's right. Small Tower actually piped up as well. A celestial king tier sect must have something like a treasured tool to speed up the passage of time. Even if it cannot compare to the reincarnation tree, it would also shrink your advantage countless times over. Chapter 1792, Sudden and Unexpected Disaster. Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. His wife and Small Tower were actually encouraging him to court a girl. This was really too bizarre. No way, he was absolutely determined not to go along with it. Yo, what a beautiful girl. Shua, a black figure flashed past. A large black dog appeared on the ship's deck, wearing a pair of flashing silvery iron underwear. It stood on its hind legs, blowing a wolf whistle in the direction of Zai Bingyun. Ling Han suddenly felt an urge to facepalm. This large black dog was really a haunting spirit that could not be gotten rid of. Wherever he went, this large black dog would be there. Forget it, he'd just act like he didn't know it. Isn't this little Han? But this large black dog still waved its dog's paw at little Han, and then turned to look at Zai Bingyun. Girlie, come give Grandpa Dog a smile. Zai Bingyun's eyes widened slightly, but in the next instant, her figure vanished from where she had been standing. Furthermore, it was not an instant disappearance, but rather she faded little by little into nothing. That was because the speed of her movement was too fast, so she had left behind afterimages where she had originally been standing. Shua, she appeared in front of the large black dog, and delivered a palm strike straight at this despicable dog. Girlie, you are so nice to want to give your grandpa dog a massage. The large black dog was still as utterly despicable as he had always been. Too bad, your hands and feet are so rough that Grandpa Dog fears that I will be pummeled to death, so just forget it. Its figure also flashed. Peng, Zai Bingyun's palm strike hit, yet completely missed its target. Luo Changfeng involuntarily showed a hint of shock in his expression. Others might not know, but how could it be that he, too, would be ignorant? Zai Bingyun's strength was in no way inferior to his, and the two of them had actually just concluded a top-grade sparring competition, and just happened to be heading the same way, and had thus traveled together. And Zai Bingyun was a space element divine fetus. Merely in terms of speed, she was slightly superior to him, but with her having taken the initiative to attack, she had actually missed a large black dog that was the target of her blow. How could this not render him dumbstruck? Kiki, Grandpa Dog is over here. The large black dog appeared at a corner of the ship's deck, his back turned on Zai Bingyun as he was shaking his behind in a very showy manner. To say nothing of Zai Bingyun, who was quite infuriated, even Ling Han felt an urge to rush forwards and give it a kick. Zai Bingyun set off in pursuit, but the large black dog continued to tear a hole in space, and escaped very easily. Aya, the little girl looks quite pretty, but why are you so fierce? Forget it, Grandpa Dog doesn't want you as my steed anymore. Little Han, Grandpa Dog will bestow this fierce woman on you, so give her proper instruction. When the large black dog had said these words, he ran off without a second thought. Zai Bingyun chased after him, but in the aspect of escaping, Ling Han had not found anyone that could surpass the large black dog, at least not among those in the same cultivation level. True enough, Zai Bingyun returned with a livid expression after a while, though her pretty eyes were set firmly on Ling Han. That damn dog. Ling Han sighed internally. The large black dog had definitely done it on purpose, drawing the heat onto him. He really was the type to screw others over. Anyone would be in the right to kill this despicable dog. Ling Han immediately made his stand clear. He had no wish to fight with anyone for no reason. Furthermore, he had been screwed over by the large black dog, so he was also extremely displeased, and very much wanted to kick him. Since you are familiar with that despicable dog, then I will capture you first, and force that despicable dog to come out. Zai Bingyun declared coldly. Without waiting for Ling Han to answer, she immediately made her move. Fuck, can't you listen to reason? Ling Han used lightning flash, and he managed to dodge Zai Bingyun's attack with a flash of his figure. His temper was also stoked, and he exclaimed, "Miss, don't be such an intolerable bully." So what if I am? Zai Bingyun declared proudly, and brazenly followed her strike with another attack. She was determined to capture Ling Han at all costs. You unreasonable shrew, you should seek out whoever angered you. Do you think that I am an easy target to bully? Ling Han was angered, and used celestial techniques as he began to counterattack. Zai Bingyun was so angry her delicate body was trembling with fury. She was one of the heirs of the Zai clan, and had been pampered since childhood. She was a princess that had been born with a silver spoon in her mouth. To say nothing of being called a shrew, no one had even directed any kind of harsh words at her. But first there was the large black dog, and next was Ling Han. They were both characters that could drive others to irrepressible fury with mere words alone, and Zai Bingyun flew into a thunderous fury. She drew a long sword, her killing intent blazing. Ling Han was unafraid, and as the divine demon's sword was used, sword chi shot directly into the 9 heavens. This. Everyone was staring in shock, dumbfounded. Ling Han's style of battle was incredibly fierce. It was clear that his battle prowess was inferior to the opponent's, but he would always be attacking head-on, and what was shocking was the fact that though Zai Bingyun sent him sliding backwards repeatedly with attacks, he was still completely unscathed. Just what exactly is the level of your defense? Everyone had incredibly good insight, and could accurately make their own judgment. In terms of battle prowess, Zai Bingyun was slightly stronger. After all, she was a 3rd Severance elite, but Ling Han's defenses was freakishly strong, which rendered Zai Bingyun's powerful offensive completely ineffective. Damn it! Zai Bingyun cried out, and a transparent battle spear actually appeared in her left hand. Shua, she summoned it with a wave of her hand, and it shot out towards Ling Han. Pa, pa, pa. As the battle spear shot out, it was actually traversing space. It had just been flying rapidly moments ago, but in a mere instant, it had already appeared in front of Ling Han, aimed in a direct stab at his head. She really was incredibly cruel. Ling Han's eyes became cold. Just because the large black dog had greeted him, and said a few words, this woman was actually venting all her hatred and fury on him. Just how unreasonable could she be? Just because you came from a celestial king tier clan, and are the heir, you can be as willful as you like? Ling Han stretched out a hand. Pa, he grabbed the battle spar. This thing was really too fast. Even if he used lightning flash, he would not be able to throw it off his tail. Ka, ka, ka. Cold ice formed, and this transparent battle spear was frozen solid, pushing Ling Han backwards such that he slid back at least 300 meters, and only stopped when he was forced back against the doors to the ship's hold. But the force of the battle spear was not expended fully yet. It twisted Ling Han's arm, and the tip of the spear stabbed into his chest, creating a groove from the force, and only then did all its power finally disperse. Ling Han's physique was really too tough. Even this kind of impact was unable to penetrate his skin, and could only create a small groove in his body. Zai Bingyun's beautiful face had a drastic change in expression. This strike was not an ordinary blow. It was created by her using the power of her ethereal divine fetus, but even so, it was unable to harm Ling Han in the slightest, and this was something she could not accept. Could it be that the other party was also a divine fetus, but not one that was focused on offensive, but leaned more in the direction of defenses? For example, something like Chaos Element Rock Divine Fetus. Additionally, how had he managed to grab her battle spear? That was a battle spear that had been formed through the ethereal divine fetus, and could not be touched by any celestial technique. Why was it said that regulations of space and time were frightening? That was because they were much stronger than other regulations before attaining Celestial King tier. For example, this battle spear was definitely not something that a severing mundane tier could touch. This involved a very high grade of space regulations. This was also why Divine Fetus was terrifying. That was because a Divine Fetus could draw on regulations that exceeded their own cultivation level. Faced with this strike from her, a severing mundane tier could only think of some way to take the strike head-on, and depend on his defenses to survive this blow, or choose to fight attack with attack. Yet Ling Han had actually grabbed the battle spear with water element regulations. Impossible, even if Ling Han was a water element divine fetus, space regulations would overwhelm all the 5 elements before Celestial King tier. How could Ling Han have possibly managed to touch her ethereal battle spear? Strange, incredibly strange. This guy was covered completely in a shroud of strangeness. Chapter 1793, Fire Burning the Backside. Naturally, Zai Bingyun could not possibly imagine that the water regulations that Ling Han was using did not come from a divine fetus, but were rather the Xianin source water. One of the 9 great source waters of the celestial realm, Celestial King tier level. When one reached Celestial King tier, every living creature was equal. No regulation was inferior or superior to the others, so what was so strange about Ling Han having managed to get hold of the ethereal battle spear? Ling Han's eyes were cold. He had never been the type that was willing to suffer in silence. After crushing the battle spear into nothing, he immediately charged out at Zai Bingyun. The divine demon sword unleashed a divine light, and patterns of great Tao appeared. After advancing to a pseudo-celestial tool, the divine demon sword's own might was finally beginning to show. This was a future celestial tool, and thus, like the 9 heavens flame and Xianin source water, possessed might above its own cultivation level. Die. Ling Han's black locks flew upwards, while his expression was grim, his killing intent blazing. Looking at his appearance, no one doubted that he was determined to commit murder at this moment, and he really would kill Zai Bingyun. This caused everyone's hearts to tremble, and even their scalps had gone numb. What kind of person is he? It should be known that Zai Bingyun was the descendant of a Celestial King tier force, and was an heir at that, and you actually wanted to kill her? If Ling Han had really succeeded, everyone here would be in deep trouble. Once a Celestial King was angered, the heavens would collapse, and the earth would shake in fear. But even being completely aware of this, Ling Han still dared to brandish his sword without the slightest hesitation. Merely this courage was enough to make others feel impressed. Bewitching Maiden Ro felt like this was the first time she had seen Ling Han. She stared at Ling Han dumbly. That kind of determination, that kind of willpower pierced into her heart like a sharp arrow. In comparison, Luo Changfeng instantly seemed negligible. Strength was the most basic measuring standard for cultivators, but it was definitely not the only consideration. Willpower was also not something that could be missed. It was said that the path of every Celestial King tier to success was incredibly harsh and filled with tribulations. Without an incredibly firm willpower, how could they have possibly managed to reach the finishing line? Ling Han being able to become a Celestial King in future was one thing, but his decisive determination, his willpower that did not allow him to submit to those in power, did at least fulfill one of the conditions for becoming a Celestial King. Of course, even if all the conditions were fulfilled, the possibility of becoming a Celestial King would still have to depend on fate and luck. It was really that difficult. In the eyes of bewitching Maiden Ro, Ling Han's figure became larger and larger, and also forced out Luo Changfeng's image. This did not mean that she had fallen in love with Ling Han, but if she had to make the choice of a Dao partner now, then she would definitely choose Ling Han over Luo Changfeng. The heart of a woman was really that elusive. The Empress showed a slight smile. This kind of man made her feel proud. Ignorance. Zai Bingyun smirked coldly, and her slender hand delivered a series of strikes. Her long sword slashed out rapidly, and even the space itself had become chaotic. She was an ethereal divine fetus, and could control space. Before Celestial King Tyr, this was one of the strongest regulations there was. Ling Han charged forwards, yet realized that his speed actually slowed down endlessly. Zai Bingyun was clearly just 30 meters ahead of him, but he was unable to get close to her even in the time for half a breath. On the other hand, Zai Bingyun's strike had caused a ripple in Great Dao, forming innumerable battle spears that pierced out towards him at an astonishing speed. It was not Ling Han whose speed had become slow, nor was it that Zai Bingyun's attacks had become faster, but rather that she was controlling space, causing the distance Ling Han would have to rush over become endlessly long, while the attacks she shot out seemed like they were taking a shortcut. Did she think that he did not have a grasp over the regulations of space? Banishment. Ling Han pushed out a hand, and banished all the regulations of space that filled the air in front of him. Shua, his figure immediately sped up, and rapidly rushed towards Zai Bingyun, and also precisely because of this, the battle spears formed of regulations that covered the skies missed their target. What? Zai Bingyun showed an expression of shock. Ling Han was actually capable of using the regulations of space as well. She was really dumbfounded. How could this be? Could it be that the other party also possessed a space element bloodline? No. Even if he did, that would not be enough to oppose her own divine fetus, unless he was also a space element divine fetus, but that was really too unbelievable. The more logical explanation was that he had refined a space element celestial medicine. What a waste of resources. Zai Bingyun rebuked through gritted teeth. If she had been able to consume this kind of celestial medicine, her grasp of the space regulations would definitely improve further, and she would also develop more power from her divine fetus. Furthermore, other celestial medicines could still be cultivated, but space element celestial medicines were completely impossible to cultivate. That was because this kind of celestial medicine grew in the cracks of space. Otherwise, they could not possibly absorb space regulations, so they could only be discovered, and not sought. The heavens were just. In a battle of equals, those that had a grasp of space element secret techniques would have stronger battle prowess, but to improve their cultivation level, the difficulty was also far higher than others. This kind of celestial medicine was completely wasted when refined by one whose main focus of cultivation was not space regulations, causing her heart to ache and fury to rise. You actually dare waste a celestial medicine, I will kill you, she roared in fury. Ling Han humphed coldly. Is there something wrong with your brain? What business is it of yours whether I waste celestial medicines or not? Furthermore, don't you think you have too high an opinion of yourself? For me, it is a waste, and for you, it is not. The two of them fought fiercely. They were both a king among kings. One had a higher cultivation level, but the other had a freakish physique. Even if Zai Bingyun was the heiress of a celestial king tier force, she actually did not have a better plan against Ling Han. Ling Han had also become seriously angry as the battle progressed. Using flame control technique, boom, the 9 heavens flame became a fiery arrow that shot out quickly at an extraordinarily fast speed. The 9 heavens flame was one of the ancestral flames of the heaven and earth, reaching celestial king tier level. Being boosted with Ling Han's flame control technique that was similarly celestial king tier level now, just how powerful was it? At first, Zai Bingyun did not take it seriously. She only knew that Ling Han possessed astonishing accomplishment in terms of water regulations, but one's energy was limited. How could he possibly spend great effort to study every single regulation? Thus, she thought that this blow from Ling Han was extremely ordinary. She still waved her sword in a slash towards Ling Han, though her right hand lowered, striking out towards the fiery arrow. She wanted to extinguish this mere spark of fire, but when her palm strike landed, only then did she realize the danger she was in. But it was too late. Boom! The 9 heavens flame exploded, turning into a furious blaze that threatened to overwhelm the heavens. Zai Bingyun released a cry of both fury and shock. The power of space trembled wildly. Xiao, a wrinkle appeared in a distant area, and then a woman leaped out. Who could it be but Zai Bingyun? As expected of a divine fetus and the heiress of a celestial king tier force, she managed to escape even under such circumstances. However, everyone's eyes were focused on Zai Bingyun, and they could see that a part of the clothing covering her behind had been burnt to nothing, revealing one side of her delicate, fair bottom. So white *****, so fragrant. This was the heiress of a celestial king tier force, under normal circumstances, who would have been able to catch a glimpse of her backside. Thus, while knowing clearly this was improper, everyone was still unable to remove their eyes. Even Luo Changfeng was no exception. Zai Bingyun was dazed at first. Then, her pretty face turned blood red. She hurriedly drew out a cape, which she then tied at her waist, covering her bottom. Then, her eyes shooting fire, she glared at Ling Han furiously. Multiple symbols of great Tao appeared on her forehead and cheeks, her whole person exuding an ethereal aura. She was going to fully draw on the power of her divine fetus. If she did not kill Ling Han, she would die. Chapter 1794, Drawing a Line. Luo Changfeng hurriedly ran over to break up the fight, saying, "Lady Zai, calm down, calm down." It was clear that Ling Han's physique was far too powerful, so much so that Zai Bingyun would find it extremely difficult to suppress him even if she continued to fight against him. Moreover, Ling Han seemed to possess a limitless amount of different techniques, so it was possible that Zai Bingyun might experience the humiliation of having her bottom exposed again. Thus, it was better to stop the fight now. Zai Bingyun was wild with fury, and her eyes were filled with killing intent. However, she resolutely turned around and returned to the battleship above her. She had a strong desire to kill Ling Han, yet she knew that she didn't have the ability to do so. As for seeking help from the elites on the battleship, she more so didn't have the face to do this. If Ling Han were at the dividing soul tier, the elites of the Zai clan would have immediately stepped forward to pummel him. After all, Ling Han would have been picking on the weak. Now, however, Ling Han was at the same cultivation level as Zai Bingyun. In fact, he was even at a slight disadvantage. Thus, would Zai Bingyun have the face to ask for help from the elites of her clan after losing to him? Would the Zai clan tolerate such a useless successor? Zai Bingyun knew that there were definitely elites from her clan observing this battle. They were her guardians, and they were there to protect her from life-threatening dangers. At the same time, however, they were also there to observe her and analyze her performance. If her actions were unfitting for a clan successor, she would be immediately stripped of this position once she returned to the clan. The path of cultivation was far too difficult. Even though she was confident that she could reach the Immortal Palace tier by herself, she still needed the resources of her clan to reach the Ascending Origin tier. In fact, she might even need the help of a Celestial King. Otherwise, it would be incredibly difficult and time-consuming to complete this step. As such, she definitely couldn't lose her position as successor. However, she would definitely exact revenge one day. Half of her soft and supple bottom had been exposed, so she naturally didn't have the face to stay here any longer. If she didn't return to the battleship, where else would she go? So pale and beautiful, someone suddenly remarked. Everyone turned around, only to see the large black dog. He was surprisingly on the battleship, and no one knew when he had returned. Apprehension crept into everyone's minds. If Zai Bingyun knew that the large black dog was present, perhaps she would explode with rage and command the battleship to open fire without any regard for the consequences. That would be equivalent to the attack of an Ascending Origin tier elite, and everyone present would be killed in the blink of an eye. Did the rage of a woman know any boundaries? To say nothing of them, even Luo Changfeng was slightly scared upon seeing this. He quickly returned to his own battleship. However, before he left, he didn't forget to send an invitation to Bewitching Maiden Ro and the Empress, asking them to come over to play. No one had succeeded in inviting them before. However, everyone understood Luo Changfeng's actions. After all, men always had their aspirations and dreams. Moreover, the Empress and Bewitching Maiden Ro were indeed breathtakingly beautiful and charming. One after another, everyone took their leave. This place was a ticking time bomb that might explode at any time, so it felt far too dangerous to remain. Little Han, you have some of Grandpa Dog's style. You know when to seize the opportunities. When fighting against beautiful women, you have to take some advantage of them no matter what. Grandpa Dog approves of you. The large black dog ran over, causing the members of the Fu clan to retreat in fright. This large black dog was the embodiment of misfortune. Those who came into contact with him would all be screwed over. In fact, Ling Han had become mortal enemies with a Celestial King Tier 4 simply with the dogs waving to him. Fu Gaoyun felt as miserable as could be. How could he not? He was one of the 4 potential successors because he had received the support of the 2 great alchemists. This support was because of Ling Han. Now, however, Ling Han had offended the successor of a Celestial King Tier force. As such, did Fu Gaoyun dare not to draw a line between himself and Ling Han? What would happen if he didn't draw a line between himself and Ling Han? The mighty beings in his clan would definitely kick him out from the position of potential successor. Otherwise, wouldn't it appear as if they were provoking a Celestial King Tier force? Everything was because of the large black dog's greeting. His actions had completely destroyed Fu Gaoyun's enviable position. As such, was he not the embodiment of misfortune? Right now, even Qing Zhong and the others were wearing expressions of indecision. They were already considering drawing a line between themselves and Fu Gaoyun. Of course, this was if Fu Gaoyun didn't draw a line between himself and Ling Han. Ling Han was rendered speechless. The large black dog was as toxic as always, yet the target of his toxic tongue possessed an unfathomable background this time. His actions instantly isolated Ling Han from everyone else, and the gazes of the others were as if they wanted to get as far away from him as possible. Brother Ling, Fu Gaoyun said. Ling Han waved his hand, signaling for him to stop. I won't drag Brother Fu into this mess. Farewell. Upon saying this, he immediately left the battleship with the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Fu Gaoyun could also be considered as a friend, and Ling Han naturally wouldn't drag his friends into his own problems. He would take responsibility for his own actions. After all, who told him to come across a troublemaker in the large black dog? Fu Gaoyun sighed in his mind. He had to consider the bigger picture, so he could only apologize to Ling Han in his mind. He would deal with this when everything was over. However, would it be easy to escape after offending the successor of a Celestial King Tier force? To say nothing of a Celestial King Tier force, even the Fu clan would capture and control anyone who dared to humiliate him like that. When he became powerful enough, his clan would then allow him to personally exact revenge. He could only pray for Ling Han's safety and hope that he could successfully escape after entering the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm. Fortunately, he had already given the Blood Dragon armor to him. Little Han, wait for Grandpa Dog, the large black dog shouted as he chased after Ling Han. Little Black, are you the reincarnation of misfortune? Why does nothing good ever happen when you're around? Ling Han asked with a sigh. Who said? The large black dog retorted in displeasure. Don't slander me like that. Otherwise, I'll gnaw your bum into mangled flesh. Say, that young woman's bum was fairly shapely and supple. I'm sure it would feel amazing to grab. Are you truly a dog? Ling Han asked speechlessly. Brat, you can curse Grandpa Dog, but you can't slander Grandpa Dog. The large black dog patted his chest and said, I'm as authentic as can be, and I'm as purebred as can be. Meanwhile, the Empress' expression was extremely cold as she gazed at the large black dog. It was because of this foolish dog that Ling Han couldn't pursue that 9 revolutions charm physique anymore. She was extremely ticked off about this. Fortunately, the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm was about to open soon, and they would still be able to come across bewitching Maiden Row there. If push came to pull, she would simply convince Ling Han to force himself on that woman. With the Empress personality, she wouldn't feel a shred of guilt in doing this. Ling Han and his wives found a spot in the desolate plains to rest. Anyhow, they could use the Black Tower. Several days passed, and numerous additional battleships arrived in the surroundings. Among them, Ling Han saw a ship that carried the emblem of the Lunar Sect. Bei Xianming had definitely come. After all, he was only at the second Severance. Perhaps other holy sons had come with him as well. Ling Han stroked his chin in thought. He had already offended Zai Bingyun, and Fu Gaoyun had more so drawn a line between the two of them. That being the case, he could wantonly cause trouble after entering the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm. Holy sons, holy daughters, and successors? He would kill them if they dared to provoke him. Did they think he was some small fry they could humiliate as they pleased? Boom! There was a loud rumble, and the mists on the desolate plain started to slowly dissipate, revealing a path. The Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm had opened. Chapter 1795, Opening of the Mystery Realm. The Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm finally opened. It opened once every 30 million years, and when it did so, a volcano inside the Mystery Realm would erupt and launch huge amounts of blood dragon stones into the surroundings. At the same time, this volcano would also suppress the violent aura of the Mystery Realm and allow cultivators to enter. This would cause a massive commotion that could be felt from tens of thousands of kilometers away. Thus, Ling Han and the others could naturally sense the opening of the Mystery Realm. Numerous figures leaped down from the battleships, and flew toward the entrance of the Mystery Realm. Most of them were dressed in a suit of crimson red armor, and only a small number of cultivators were dressed in ordinary clothes. The crimson red armor was naturally the blood dragon armor. If one didn't wear this, they would definitely die if they dared to enter the Mystery Realm. Those who were dressed in ordinary clothes definitely had a suit of blood dragon armor hidden underneath their clothes. If they didn't, that would be seeking death. Huh? Where's my blood dragon armor? Someone suddenly exclaimed in a tragic voice. It's with Grandpa Dog. Let me borrow it for a while, and I'll return it to you later, the large black dog said as he flew into the distance. Instead of wearing his usual iron underwear, he was now dressed in a suit of crimson red armor. However, because the armor had been designed for humans, the detestable dog naturally looked extremely peculiar after wearing it. Moreover, he was forced to stand upright. However, his speed was still astonishingly quick. Give it back, the person roared as he chased after the large black dog. Pay! How stingy! And to think that Grandpa Dog specifically chose you, the large black dog said in disdain. With a few bounds, he instantly disappeared from the person's sight. Who wants to be chosen by you? The person cursed in his mind, yet he didn't dare to follow the large black dog into the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm. He could only stomp his feet in anger and frustration. He had waited for 30 million years, and after much difficulty, he had finally obtained a spot to enter the Mystery Realm. However, his blood dragon armor had been stolen from him just like that. He could only stare at the others in envy and jealousy. No, I also have to steal a suit of armor. He gazed at someone beside him and immediately leaped over, attempting to steal their armor. However, his target naturally started to resist and counterattack. Moreover, how many people were crowded near the entrance? It was inevitable that their battles started to affect the nearby cultivators as well. A massive brawl instantly broke out. Pang, pang, pang. This was a scene of absolute chaos, with flashes of divine light and bursts of regulations soaring through the air. Ling Han couldn't help but feel impressed. The large black dog was definitely a supreme troublemaker. Ling Han, die. Several elites of the Fu clan started to attack Ling Han. Ling Han had violated Zai Bingyun just then, and even though Fu Gaoyun had already drawn a line between himself and Ling Han, just this alone wouldn't be enough to appease the Celestial King tier force. The Fu clan had to make a statement no matter what. Of course, the underlings of Fu Xiuping, Fu Bingbing, and Fu Tonghai genuinely wanted to kill Ling Han. These three potential successors all had underlings who were freaks among the severing mundane tier, and these freaks could be regarded as invincible at their cultivation level. Right now, three of them had charged forward to attack Ling Han. Ling Han raised a brow, and he was just about to charge over to meet their attacks. On second thought, however, he grabbed the Empress' hand, and started to sprint toward the entrance of the Mystery Realm instead. There was no need to fight against them at this moment. After all, defeating each of them would take a huge amount of time and effort. In fact, he might even need to unleash his trump cards in the form of 9 Heavens Flame and the Xianin Source Water. Moreover, defeating them wouldn't yield any benefits. As such, why should he fight against them? As for the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, she had already entered the Black Tower. They only had 2 suits of Blood Dragon armor, so she couldn't enter the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm anyway. A menacing glint flashed across the Empress' eyes. These people actually dared to unleash killing intent toward her husband? Had they grown tired of living? After activating his lightning flash, Ling Han and the Empress quickly disappeared in the mist that shrouded the entrance of the Mystery Realm. Even though the Mystery Realm had already opened, the expanse of mist before it still hadn't fully dissipated. It was simply less dense than before. Outside the Mystery Realm, Qianzhao Tian, Beiyu Xiong, Ting Sen, and the others all appeared with their underlings. There was killing intent in their eyes as they gazed at Ling Han's disappearing figure. If they managed to kill Ling Han, wouldn't it mean that they could potentially become acquainted with the Zai clan? If Zai Bingyun just so happened to develop feelings for one of them, perhaps they would be able to marry the successor of a Celestial King tier force. At that time, they could then walk toward the pinnacle of life? Die. They came to a decision in their minds. If they came across Ling Han in the Mystery Realm, they would kill him without any mercy. Let's go. They started to enter the Mystery Realm. After a while, Zai Bingyun also flew over from her battleship. However, she looked to be brimming with confidence as she entered the Mystery Realm alone. Not long later, Luo Changfeng also appeared and entered the Mystery Realm by himself. There was a faint smile on his face, and it was as if everything was in his grasp. Let's go, Fu Gaoyun said with a wave of his hand. Upon seeing Ling Han enter the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm, he silently prayed for his safety in his mind. He hoped that Ling Han could take advantage of the Mystery Realm to escape from the Zai clan. Qing Zhong and the others nodded in acknowledgement as they followed Fu Gaoyun into the Mystery Realm. Separation Resentment City. This 3-star city was as calm as always. Although there were still 2 major tiers above the Immortal Palace tier, the Ascending Origin tier and the Celestial King tier, there would be fewer and fewer elites at such profound cultivation levels. Thus, 3-star forces were definitely powerful and influential forces in the Celestial Realm. The soldiers stationed outside the city gates were feeling extremely relaxed. After all, the previous time that Separation Resentment City had been assaulted was over 1.7 billion years ago. At that time, there had been an intense conflict with the Qi clan, the neighboring 3-star force, and the Qi clan had sent 11 Immortal Palace tier elites to attack the Separation Resentment City. The Fu clan had paid a huge price that time, with 1 Immortal Palace tier elite dying and 5 other elites suffering grave wounds. Even up until now, they still hadn't managed to fully recover from their wounds. Meanwhile, the Qi clan hadn't fared much better. As such, they had no option but to end the battle. If the battle had continued, both clans would have been digging their own graves and benefiting the other forces. However, it was also because of this extended period of peace that the soldiers stationed outside the city gates had become lazy and carefree. Some were sitting with their legs crossed, and others were lying on the ground and sleeping. Enemy assault, a guard suddenly exclaimed in astonishment. He had only noticed the black figure that was streaking towards Separation Resentment City after coincidentally raising his head. Hurry, sound the alarm, a guard shouted as he hurriedly jumped off a rock. The other soldiers glanced up, only to see that the black figures were actually numerous dragon hawks. There was a female rider on each dragon hawk, and the woman in the lead was dressed in a suit of golden armor. She was beautiful and mighty, and she looked much like a goddess of war. The soldiers fell to their knees upon seeing this. They felt as if their hearts were about to explode in apprehension. That woman was far too powerful. Who comes? Since you've come to my Fu clan, is there any need to act so haughty and domineering? An aged voice asked. This voice had traveled over from heaven-departing city, and it was as loud and deafening as the toll of a bell. The woman in the lead casually waved her hand, causing her dragon hawk to immediately stop and hover in the sky. At the same time, the 10 dragon hawks behind her also stop in unison. Is there someone called Ling Han in Separation Resentment City? The woman asked. Her voice wasn't loud, yet it clearly traveled into the city. Friend, you've barged into my Fu clan, and you're acting with such arrogance and haughtiness. Do you think my Fu clan is an easy target? Xiao. A figure instantly shot over before proudly standing in the sky. This was an ancestor of the Fu clan, and he was an Immortal Palace tier elite. Chapter 1796, Mysterious Female Knight. The woman cast a cold glance at the old ancestor, and it was as if she viewed him not as an Immortal Palace tier elite, but rather as a mere ant. Just how much contempt was she showing? The old ancestor was called Fu Dongxue, and he had already reached the Immortal Palace tier hundreds of billions of years ago, granting him a limitless lifespan. He wasn't the strongest elite of the Fu clan, and he could, in fact, be considered as one of the weakest. However, an Immortal Palace tier elite was an Immortal Palace tier elite, after all, and one could be regarded as a supreme elite even if they had only cultivated a single secret palace. If anyone else dared to treat him with such contempt, he would have already charged over and smacked them to death. However, he didn't dare to attack this woman. This was because she was also at the Immortal Palace tier. Moreover, after reaching this major tier, it was already impossible to determine each other's specific cultivation level unless they released their aura. It was because of this that Fu Dongxue felt slightly apprehensive, and didn't dare to rashly attack her. He was afraid of coming up against a brick wall. As an old ancestor, if he were defeated at the entrance of his clan, that would be a humiliating matter that would accompany him forever. Even so, Fu Dongxue was still brimming with confidence. Even though he was up against 11 people, only their leader had reached the Immortal Palace tier. The remaining people were all at the Dividing Soul tier. This was indeed a supremely powerful group of cultivators, yet they were only strong enough to gain the attention of the Fu clan. They were still far too weak to frighten the Fu clan. Of course, the Fu clan naturally didn't wish to battle against Immortal Palace tier elites if they didn't need to. After all, doing so would result in huge losses for both sides. Where's Ling Han? The female knight asked coldly. Her gaze was as haughty as could be. Ling Han? Who's Ling Han? Although Ling Han had shot to fame recently, his matters still hadn't been significant enough to capture the attention of Immortal Palace tier elites. Thus, Fu Dongxue naturally didn't recognize his name. Xiao. Right at this moment, a shuttle shot over at an incredible speed before grinding to a sudden halt. A tall and skinny elder leaped out from the shuttle, and he swept his gaze around the surroundings before saying, "Old Monster Shui, I'm here to ask for a person." His voice was like thunder as it boomed through the air. Fu Dongxue's pupils contracted slightly, and he asked, "Han Luo, what's the meaning of this? You actually ran over here to ask for a person?" Han Luo was an ancestor of the Han clan, a 3-star force. He was also an Immortal Palace tier elite, and like Fu Dongxue, he had also cultivated a single secret palace. The two of them had battled against each other 100 or so times during their incredibly long lifetime, and it could be said that they were extremely familiar with each other. Humph. An audacious brat destroyed the physical body of a junior of my clan in the ancient realm. Not only that, but he's provoked the Han clan time and time again. Our ancient ancestor has already issued a clan order to kill this brat. Han Luo said. Fu Dongxue frowned upon hearing this. The ancient ancestor of the Han clan had actually issued a clan order? This signified that the Han clan was hellbent on killing their target. However, which brat had dared to act with such audacity? Whom are you looking for? He asked. Ling Han. Pooh. Fu Dongxue instantly choked upon hearing this, and his expression became as strange as could be. Ling Han, it's Ling Han again. Who in the world is this brat? He actually attracted 2 Immortal Palace tier elites to the Fu clan. Perhaps Fu Dongxue had never heard of this name before, but he would certainly never forget it again after today. If he learned that Ling Han had also offended the female successor of the Zai clan, perhaps he would be so shocked that he would spit out a mouthful of blood. This Ling Han was definitely a sign of misfortune. Fu Dongxue turned to the woman and asked, Friend, has the brat Ling Han also wounded members of your clan? Since Ling Han wasn't a member of the Fu clan, nor a member of the Fu clan's subordinate forces, Fu Dongxue naturally wouldn't hesitate in sentencing him to death. After all, the Fu clan definitely couldn't start a conflict with the Han clan or any other 3-star force because of a measly brat like Ling Han. However, he was feeling hesitant because Han Luo and the woman had clearly come from 2 different forces. As such, whom should he hand the brat to? The female knight's gaze was cold, and she impatiently said, Are you going to hand him over or not? Why are you spewing so much nonsense? Fu Dongxue was almost angered to death. I'm also an Immortal Palace tier elite, so what's with your attitude? Moreover, it's you who's asking me for a person, not the other way around. Your attitude is far too arrogant and haughty, no? Upon hearing the woman's words, Han Luo immediately turned to her and said in a firm voice, Friend, Ling Han belongs to the Han clan. The Han clan wasn't simply seeking Ling Han to exact revenge. Instead, they were also lusting over the secret techniques that he possessed. In the beginning, they had suspected that Ling Han was the successor of some celestial king tier force. However, after pondering over this for a while, they discovered that he wasn't worthy of holding such a position. That being the case, they concluded that Ling Han had obtained the inheritance and treasures of a deceased celestial king. As such, they definitely had to capture him no matter what so that they could extract his soul and obtain his secrets. Ling Han definitely couldn't fall into the hands of others. The female knight glanced at Han Luo, and asked, Are you threatening me? Her gaze was ice-cold and emotionless. Han Luo's heart shuddered, and it was as if it were about to leap into his throat. This was a terrible feeling, and he almost jumped up to throw a punch at the woman. It was as if she were a formidable beast. He was utterly astounded. The woman was clearly at the Immortal Palace tier, so why did he feel such overwhelming pressure from her? The Han clan must personally kill Ling Han. Friend, if Ling Han has also offended you, the result will be the same if the Han clan deals with him, Han Luo said. His tone was much softer than before. The female knight frowned upon hearing this. There was impatience on her face, and she said, Hurry up and piss off. Otherwise, I'll kill you right here and now. Her piercing gaze swept over, and a boundless killing intent instantly surged toward Han Luo. Even the sky shuddered slightly. Han Luo couldn't help but feel apprehension. However, he immediately exploded in rage. He was an Immortal Palace tier elite, and he could be regarded as a powerful elite no matter where he went. In fact, he would be highly valued even if he went to a Celestial King tier force. Yet, this woman actually wanted to kill him? Fuck. If the tiger doesn't roar, you'll think I'm an ill cat. Han Luo said in a cold voice. If he didn't show his might, it was clear that the woman would continue to act all high and mighty. At the end of the day, everything still revolved around power. The woman shot a cold glance at Han Luo before extending her right hand and smacking it toward him. You're seeking death. How audacious. Han Luo roared. This woman was far too domineering and wanton. After shouting this, however, his jaw involuntarily dropped, and his eyes involuntarily widened. This was because the female knight's attack had caused large swathes of divine iridescent clouds to form in the sky. At the same time, the great Tao transformed into soaring columns that plummeted down toward him. This was far too powerful. This was far too terrifying. Fifth secret. Fu Dongxue exclaimed in a quivering voice. His hands were shaking in fear. What was an immortal palace? In fact, the immortal palace tier should have been referred to as the immortal organs tier. This major tier involved cultivating one's internal organs into secret palaces. The organs of importance were the heart, the liver, the spleen, the lungs, and the kidneys. After cultivating all 5 of these organs into secret palaces, one would have reached the pinnacle of the immortal palace tier. In other words, the immortal palace tier had a total of 5 minor levels. Fu Dongxue had only cultivated a single secret palace, so his cultivation level could be referred to as the first secret, first palace, or first immortal palace. However, once the woman unleashed her attack, he immediately realized that she was a 5th secret elite. When a 4th Severance cultivator attacked a 1st Severance cultivator, what would the result be? An instant kill. When a Heaven Soul elite attacked a Yang Soul elite, what would the result be? Instant kill. So, when a 5th secret elite attacked a 1st secret elite, what would the result be? It would naturally be an instant kill. Boom! Divine iridescent clouds surged into the surroundings, and the glow of the regulations suffused through the sky. At the same time, Han Luo's figure comprehensively vanished. He had been annihilated into nothingness. Fu Dongxue's legs started to tremble uncontrollably. An immortal palace tier elite, someone who could act as he pleased in the surrounding millions of large cities, had been insta-killed by someone just like that. Both his body and his divine sense had been completely obliterated. Where in the world is this female knight from? Chapter 1797, Rock Palace. Celestial King Tier Sect. Fu Dongxue drew a sharp breath. He had a feeling that things were about to get messy. Han Luo had died in Separation Resentment City, a territory of the Fu clan. Regardless of what they said, the Fu clan definitely couldn't push the blame away from themselves. In fact, there was even a possibility that a full-scale conflict would erupt between them and the Han clan. However, what could Fu Dongxue say? The female knight was a 5th secret elite, and he was as helpless as a measly ant before her. Who in the world is Ling Han? How has he caught the attention of 2 3-star forces? In fact, he's even led to the death of an immortal palace tier elite. He hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Friend, I'll go and investigate right away." Unbeknownst to him, his voice had already softened considerably, and his expression had already become respectful and apprehensive. This woman was a 5th secret elite. Even the Fu clan only had one such elite. As he flew back to Heaven Departing City, Fu Dongxue ordered his subordinates to investigate Ling Han and his whereabouts. At the same time, he notified the other mighty figures of the Fu clan that a 5th secret elite had come. He was completely incapable of dealing with her. It wasn't long before many powerful elites arrived. They proudly stood in the sky, with some of them completely visible, some of them shrouded in mists of chaos, and some of them shrouded in auras of the great Tao. There were 9 elites in total, and they were the only 9 immortal palace tier elites of the Fu clan. Moreover, Fu Shenbing, the most powerful elite of the Fu clan, was also present among them. He was surrounded and protected by the other elites, and judging from his appearance, he only looked to be around 30 years old. In fact, this was after he had purposefully made himself appear older. Otherwise, he would only look to be around 20 years old. Right now, Fu Shenbing was observing the female knight. This woman seemed profound and mysterious, and if they were to do battle, he wouldn't have any confidence in defeating her. After a short while, they received a report with Ling Han's information. Expressions of astonishment spread across the 9 powerful elites' faces as they quickly scanned the report with their divine sense. Ling Han's actions were indeed fairly freakish. However, it still seemed to be a stretch that he could catch the attention of 2 immortal palace tier elites. Moreover, the female knight had even killed Han Luo after a brief and seemingly trivial argument. Wasn't she afraid of the Han clan seeking revenge? Strangely enough, they couldn't determine the female knight's background no matter what. There was a fish-like yet also bird-like emblem on the Dragonhawk saddle, and with their paucity of experience, they were completely unable to determine which force this emblem belonged to. My apologies, Ling Han has already entered the hidden dragon mystery realm, Fu Dongxue said after receiving a divine sense message from Fu Dongxue. He revealed the truth to the female knight. Moreover, his voice was loud and clear now that the old ancestor was standing beside him. He was filled with renewed confidence. The female knight pondered for a moment before asking, "Where's the hidden dragon mystery realm located?" Fu Shenbing finally opened his mouth, saying, "Friend, you want to head to the hidden dragon mystery realm to find Ling Han?" "Nonsense," the female knight said without restraint. Were these people retards? Had she flown here from the western celestial realm simply to have a cup of tea in their *TTY little city? Impudence, an elite of the Fu clan roared in anger. This woman was far too audacious and wanton. Not only had she killed an elite at their doorstep, she was even disrespecting their old ancestor now. Did she truly think that the Fu clan was an easy target? Fu Shenbing was slightly displeased, and he said, "Friend, you've killed an immortal palace tier elite of the Han clan at the doorstep of my Fu clan. Regarding this matter, you have to give me a satisfactory explanation. The Fu clan can't shoulder this responsibility for you." The female knight became even more impatient, and she said, "What Han clan and Fu clan? If you want an explanation, you're welcome to come to the Rock Palace. My sect is willing to accept your challenge regardless of who you are." Rock Palace? The elites of the Fu clan exchanged puzzled glances. Is there such a force in the surroundings? There definitely isn't. To say nothing of 3-star forces, such a force didn't exist even among the 4-star forces and 5-star forces. Gasp. This person isn't an elite of the Qi clan, right? Is she purposefully disguising herself as a member of the Rock Palace or whatnot to shift the blame to someone else? Does she want to incite a deadly conflict between the Han clan and the Fu clan? However, the likelihood of this was extremely low. This was because the Qi clan only had a single 5th secret elite, and this elite certainly wasn't the female knight before them. One could disguise their appearance, but they couldn't disguise the regulations that they wielded. In other words, the elite of the Qi clan and the female knight before them were 2 completely different people. Moreover, it was extremely unlikely that she had calculated everything so precisely and come here at just the right moment to kill Han Luo. This was most likely a coincidence. Strange. What in the world is the Rock Palace? Friend, why don't you stay here for a few days? Anyhow, the hidden dragon mystery realm has already opened, and it will remain open for at least 10 or so years, Fu Shenbing said. He planned to immediately notify the Han clan of the matters here, and when the members of the Han clan arrived, it would be up to them how they dealt with the situation. In any case, this had nothing to do with the Fu clan. The female knight became even more impatient, and she said, "I'm asking you for the location of the hidden dragon mystery realm. I didn't ask for your suggestions." "Friend, aren't you perhaps taking things a little too far?" a 3rd secret elite said. Their old ancestor was standing right beside them, so he was naturally unafraid. "Bunch of fools. You're asking for trouble," the female knight said coldly. She raised her right hand. Boom. Regulations gathered, and the surroundings instantly transformed into a sea of water element Great Tao. Rumble. A colossal fish that was as large as a mountain leaped out from the water, and crashed toward the 9 powerful elites of the Fu clan. Impudence. Fu Shenbing roared in fury. This woman was far too domineering and audacious. She had charged into the Fu clan, and not only had she killed an elite of the Han clan, but she was even attacking the elites of the Fu clan now. Fu Shenbing was rendered completely speechless. He immediately counterattacked, and the 8 other Immortal Palace tier elites also unleashed attacks of their own. This wasn't a sparring session, but rather a battle of resistance to prevent the Fu clan from being humiliated by an outsider. Thus, they naturally didn't need to worry about bullying others with numbers. The colossal fish surged over, causing water element regulations to suffuse the sky. After a while, the surroundings returned to a state of peace and tranquility. The female knight was unfazed as she sat on her dragon hawk, while the 9 elites of the Fu clan were disheveled and in a complete mess. Fu Shenbing was no exception, with his hair loose and his clothes drenched in blood. The 9 powerful elites were completely stunned. What kind of power was this? So be it if the other elites had been suppressed. However, Fu Shenbing was a 5th secret elite. Moreover, he had also had the assistance of 8 other Immortal Palace tier elites. Yet, he had still been defeated in a single strike. Just how great was the gulf between their power? Gasp. It was extremely likely that this woman wouldn't need to spend much energy if she genuinely wanted to destroy the Fu clan. How could there exist such a powerful Immortal Palace tier elite? O old ancestor, a youth who was standing beneath them stammered. He was extremely afraid, yet he still spoke to grab their attention. The 9 powerful elites were extremely displeased. What kind of time was this? Was this a time for some measly Genesis tier cultivator to stick their nose in? However, they didn't have the time or effort to scold this junior. After all, the female knight before them was far too terrifying. Old ancestor, I know about the existence of the Rock Palace, the youth continued. Although he was scared to death, he knew that this was an extremely rare opportunity to speak to the 9 Grand Elders. Having spoken to them, who in the Fu clan would dare not to give him face in the future? The 9 elites finally paid attention to him. Fu Dongxue signaled with his eyes, and Fu Dongxue immediately understood his intentions. He hovered down and lifted the youth into midair before saying, "Speak." Not long ago, young Master Yun tasked me with investigating the whereabouts of the Rock Palace. After spending a huge amount of effort, I finally obtained some useful information from a merchant who travels the boundless seas. As it turns out, the Rock Palace is located in the Western Celestial Realm. Western Celestial Realm? No wonder they had never heard of the Rock Palace before. To say nothing of the distance between the Eastern Celestial Realm and the Western Celestial Realm, even Celestial King tier forces in the same continent would know very little about each other. After all, the Celestial Realm was unfathomable in size. The youth paused for a moment before saying, "The Rock Palace is a Celestial King tier force." Pooh! The 9 powerful elites of the Fu clan immediately choked and spluttered upon hearing this. They broke into fits of coughing, and their expressions became as shocked and astounded as could be. Although we've named the force the Rock Palace, the animal referred to is actually the Kunpeng. Chapter 1798, Coincidence. Celestial King Tier Force. Celestial King Tiers were the paramount elites of the Celestial Realm, and Celestial King Tier forces were the most powerful forces in the entire world. Who could rival such juggernaut forces? Fu Shenbing and the other elites almost wet their pants in fright, and their heads were completely numb with apprehension. No wonder the female knight was so powerful. As it turned out, she was an elite from a Celestial King Tier force. They were both at the 5th secret, yet the female knight was practicing a Celestial King Tier technique. As such, it was only natural that her battle prowess was far superior to his. Gasp! Who in the world was Ling Han? He actually had links to a Celestial King Tier force? They were almost certain that Ling Han hadn't offended the Rock Palace. After all, they were separated by the boundless seas, so how could a measly severing mundane tier cultivator offend them? Moreover, that was a Celestial King Tier force. Even if Ling Han were 100 times more audacious, would he dare to offend them? However, they had clearly underestimated Ling Han's tendency to cause trouble. At this moment, he had already offended the Zai clan. "Where is the hidden dragon mystery realm located?" the female knight asked in extreme impatience. Fu Shenbing hurriedly and respectfully told her the location of the hidden dragon mystery realm. Before an elite from a celestial king tier force, he didn't dare to act arrogantly at all. The female knight couldn't care less about Fu Shenbing's obsequious attitude, and she immediately patted her dragon hawk, commanding it to turn around and instantly soar into the distance. The 10 female knights behind her quickly patted their dragon hawks and followed her lead. Only when these female knights vanished into the distance did Fu Shenbing breathe a sigh of relief. He was drenched in cold sweat. The female knight had shown no hesitation to kill, and she more so had the support of a powerful celestial king tier force. As such, she could act as wantonly as she wanted. Fu Shenbing pondered for a moment before saying, "Dongxue, go to the Han clan to explain the situation to them." The female knight could pat her hands and leave, yet the Fu clan still had to deal with the aftermath. Old ancestor, Fu Dongxue shuffled over and whispered, "I looked into Ling Han just then, and this brat is truly a big troublemaker. He went to Dark Moon City not long ago, and he destroyed a severing mundane tier force. While he was at Black Moon City, he also became enemies with the Shao clan, a 2-star force. Not only that, but there's also great animosity between him and Bei Xianming, the holy son of the lunar sect." Fu Shenbing frowned upon hearing this, and he said, "Send someone to the Shao clan and tell them to behave themselves." Crap, the hidden dragon mystery realm. The hidden dragon mystery realm had already opened, so what would happen if someone from the lunar sect killed Ling Han? The Rock Palace would definitely become infuriated, so what would they do at that time? If the Rock Palace were reasonable, they would still be able to watch on as outsiders. However, if the Rock Palace were unreasonable, what would they do if the Rock Palace decided to destroy them as an offering for Ling Han? More frighteningly, Fu Gaoyun had an extremely close relationship with Ling Han. As such, his 3 fellow potential successors were definitely extremely jealous of him. After entering the hidden dragon mystery realm, how could they not seize the opportunity to kill Ling Han? Gasp. If Ling Han were killed by a member of the Fu clan would definitely be done for. Hurry, send more people into the hidden dragon mystery realm. Tell them what's happened, and have them protect Ling Han at all costs. Fu Dongxue hurriedly nodded, and replied, "Understood." If Fu Shenbing knew that Ling Han had already offended another celestial king tier force, just what kind of expression would he wear? Would he still insist on protecting him at all costs? He would definitely be as hesitant as could be. Ling Han was far too much of a troublemaker. Inside the hidden dragon mystery realm. Upon entering, one would be met with an expanse of suffusing mist. This mist was harmless, yet it would completely obstruct one's sight and divine sense. It was as if they had gone completely blind. After walking for 30 or so minutes, however, this mist would gradually dissipate, and allow them to more clearly see their surroundings. This was a large plain that was covered in grass that reached one's waist. This was a land that was filled with life and vitality, and as the gentle breeze blew by, the tall grass would undulate like a stretch of green waves. It was a spectacular sight. Many cultivators were sprinting forward at an incredible speed, and they quickly disappeared into the distance. A fiery current swirled through the land, and it radiated with a sour and sulfuric smell. Far away in the distance, one could also see a colossal mountain that towered into the clouds. Mist gently rolled off the mountain. In fact, this mountain was the volcano that unleashed lava into the surroundings, and suppressed the violent aura of the mystery realm. However, the lava would transform the surrounding land into a scorching sea of heat, so the cultivators had to rely on their blood dragon armor to survive. Otherwise, they would be instantly incinerated into ashes by the powerful regulations of flames. According to rumors, dividing soul tier elites could rely on their own abilities to wander around the outer regions of the plane. Elites at the Immortal Palace tier could venture further in, yet they were still unable to reach the depths of the plane. Moreover, the more powerful one was, the more easily they would trigger a backlash from the violent aura of the mystery realm. After all, the violent aura had only been suppressed, not dissolved. As such, this mystery realm had become a place for severing mundane tier cultivators to explore and adventure. Ling Han was slightly astonished. He discovered that the origin flames in his body were churning around, and it was as if they were extremely intimate with the scorching heat waves in the surroundings. I have a feeling that these heat waves can't injure me, Ling Han said. He decided to remove his blood dragon armor. Otherwise, the heat waves would be kept a foot from his body. Be careful, the Empress hurriedly said in warning. Ling Han nodded, and said, rest assured, I know what I'm doing. He slowly removed his blood dragon armor, and the heat waves in the surroundings instantly surged toward him like thirsty horses that had seen an oasis. They transformed into countless slithering fire snakes, and it was as if they were about to refine his body. Right at this moment, however, a supremely domineering aura radiated from Ling Han's body, and it was as if he were a high and mighty ruler. This was the Nine Heavens flame. The fire snakes instantly calmed down, and they started to slowly encircle his body. In fact, they even bowed slightly, and it was as if they were paying respects to their ruler. It can't be that coincidental, right? Ling Han exclaimed in astonishment. The Empress also came to a realization, and she said, perhaps this celestial king tier force was the one that created the flame control technique? And perhaps they were also the previous owner of the Nine Heavens flame? Almost certainly. Otherwise, this reaction can't be explained, Ling Han said with a nod. Although he possessed an ancestral flame, regulations of flames that were more powerful than him could still threaten and wound him. The flames in this mystery realm were so powerful that even ascending origin tier elites needed to exert their full power to resist their might. Even so, they were still restricted to only wandering around the outer regions of the plane. Judging from this, one could imagine just how powerful the flames in this mystery realm were. As such, there could only be one explanation for why they didn't harm Ling Han. There seems to be an intangible will of the heavens, Ling Han said. I obtained the Nine Heavens flame first, and I then obtained the flame control technique from bewitching Maiden Ro. Now, I've even entered the den of that celestial king. This is truly an amazing coincidence. The Empress nodded upon hearing this. She was also feeling respect and apprehension toward the intangible will of the heavens. Was there truly an intangible power that lay transcendent above all matter? Since we've already entered, there's no point pondering this anymore. Let's look around and hope we find some treasures, Ling Han said. He was extremely eager to advance to the third severance, as doing so would allow him to kill Zai Bingyun. The Empress gently nodded in understanding. Anyhow, she would be happy as long as she was by Ling Han's side. Although they had an extra suit of blood dragon armor now, Ling Han still didn't let the heavenly phoenix divine maiden into the mystery realm. Her cultivation level was far too low, so even the blood dragon armor wouldn't be enough to help her resist the scorching heat of this mystery realm. If she insisted on entering, she would definitely suffer a fate of death. Ling Han and the Empress continued to advance. As they did so, they didn't forget to search for blood dragon stones. These were materials that could allow them to advance at an explosive speed. However, blood dragon stones were extremely difficult to find, and it was completely up to luck whether they could come across them or not. Ling Han's luck had always been decent, so it wasn't long before they came across a shiny red object. Picking it up, they discovered that it was indeed a blood dragon stone. As its name suggested, this was a blood red stone. Huh! Ling Han suddenly exclaimed in surprise. His Nine Heavens flame suddenly wavered, causing the blood dragon stone to instantly disintegrate and turn into ashes. At the same time, the essence within the blood dragon stone was completely absorbed into his body. Chapter 1799, Rabbit or Celestial Medicine. Blood dragon stones were extremely valuable cultivation items that could help one rapidly comprehend their cultivation level. Although blood dragon stones were of the fire element, the fact that they were at the level of the Great Tao meant that they possessed intricate links with all other elements. Thus, even cultivators who didn't practice techniques of the fire element could use blood dragon stones to comprehend the Great Tao. It was just that the effect would be slightly inferior compared to those who practice techniques of the fire element. However, blood dragon stones couldn't be refined in one swift go, and one needed to slowly extract their essence bit by bit. The process was similar to that of refining star stones. Now, however, with a simple touch, Ling Han had instantly caused a blood dragon stone to disintegrate into and turn ashes. Not a single trace of it was left. One had to realize that refining blood dragon stones would usually result in a pile of scraps. Moreover, these scraps were the materials used to make the blood dragon armor. Otherwise, even immortal palace tier elites wouldn't be able to enter this mystery realm. Without the blood dragon armor, they were only capable of wandering around the outer regions of the plane. Is this because of the flame control technique? Or is it because of the Nine Heavens flame? Ling Han asked as he looked toward the Empress. We can only find out after obtaining another blood dragon stone, the Empress replied. They continued to advance, and after 4 or so hours, they were blessed by the god of fortune again. They came across another blood dragon stone. This time, it was the Empress who picked it up. However, unlike with Ling Han, the blood dragon stone didn't disintegrate and turn into ashes. The Empress then activated the flame control technique, and the blood dragon stone rapidly shrunk at a rate that was visible to the naked eye. However, it still left a layer of a shell. This speed of refinement was far superior to that of other cultivators, though it was still incomparable to Ling Han's. Sure enough, everything is related to that celestial king, Ling Han and the Empress said with certainty. It was because of his Nine Heavens flame that Ling Han was able to refine the blood dragon stone quicker and more comprehensively. Bewitching Maiden Ro will definitely discover this phenomenon as well, Ling Han murmured. As long as she obtained a blood dragon stone, Bewitching Maiden Ro would immediately discover that she could refine it countless times quicker than before. Moreover, what kind of place was the hidden dragon mystery realm? According to rumors, it was the ruin of a celestial king tier force. With Bewitching Maiden Ro's intelligence, she would be bringing shame to her title of Holy Daughter if she couldn't discover the link between the two matters. Ling Han and the Empress continued to advance. This time, however, they didn't make a conscious effort to search for blood dragon stones. After all, once they confirmed the relationship between this mystery realm and the celestial king, they would be able to do far more things. For example, they could directly go to the volcano and start digging there. Since Ling Han could ignore the regulation of flames here, he could naturally enter the depths of the volcano to obtain more blood dragon stones. Perhaps this mystery realm even contained cultivation techniques and other inheritances of the celestial king. Stop. Stop. Hurry up and enter Grandpa Dog's bowl. This exclamation instantly caught Ling Han's and the Empress' attention. It was the large black dog again. A white figure and a red figure were rapidly dashing about in the distance. The white figure in front was a rabbit, and its entire body was covered in white fur. Meanwhile, its eyes were ruby red. With a skip and a hop, it continued to bounce away from the figure chasing it. At the same time, it didn't let go of the carrot in its hands. Behind this rabbit was the large black dog, and because of the crimson-red armor, his entire body was covered in red. Moreover, because he could only sprint on his hind legs, his movements looked extremely strange and uncanny. Little rabbit, you can't escape. The large black dog exclaimed as he activated a teleportation technique, and instantly blocked the rabbit's path. There was a creepy smile on his face, and for those who weren't familiar with him, it was as if he wanted to commit some unspeakable crime against the rabbit. The white rabbit ground to a sudden halt before turning around and bouncing away in another direction. *TTY rabbit, your grandpa dog's dinner, the large black dog shouted as he hurriedly chased after the rabbit again. His tongue was hanging out, and drool was flying all over the place. When did this detestable dog become a glutton? Ling Han stroked his chin in thought. Perhaps being a glutton was also infectious? The large black dog was incredibly quick, and it could be said that his speed was already peerless among those at the severing mundane tier. With a few teleportations, he quickly caught up to the large white rabbit again. He then lunged over and tried to bite down. However, the large white rabbit managed to escape from his maw. Thereupon, the game of chase and escape resumed again. After several repetitions, the large white rabbit couldn't help but become angry, and its ruby-red eyes started to burn with flames. When the large black dog successfully blocked its path again, the large white rabbit didn't turn around to flee. Instead, it furiously opened its mouth. An astonishing sight appeared. The rabbit's mouth widened to at least 30 meters in size, and it transformed into something akin to a black hole. With a swoosh, it bent down and gobbled the large black dog up. The large white rabbit's mouth then returned to normal size, upon which it raised its carrot and started to nibble on it. It looked as harmless as could be. This. Ling Han and the Empress were astounded. Just then, the large white rabbit had still looked like a weak and helpless victim. In the blink of an eye, however, it had suddenly unleashed a terrifying might and gobbled the large black dog up. Had the large black dog been killed? After a brief moment, an expression of disgust spread across the large white rabbit's face. It opened its mouth to spit something out. Pooh! A blob of matter flew out and started to rapidly expand. This was none other than the large black dog. The large white rabbit then turned around, quickly disappearing into the distance with a bounce and a hop. *TTY rabbit, don't let Grandpa Dog capture you. Otherwise, I'll steam you and roast you, the large black dog shouted as he jumped around in frustration. His blood dragon armor was damaged and messy, and it was clear just how powerful the large white rabbit's digestion ability was. This was definitely due to the power of regulations. Otherwise, the blood dragon armor was completely able to rival the properties of 2-star pseudo-divine metal with its hardness and toughness. However, because it was impossible to cut and fuse blood dragon stones, it was naturally impossible to forge pseudo-celestial tools with them. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh and say, "Little Black, it's such a rare sight to see you suffering at the hands of others." "Hey, Grandpa Dog will definitely raid the burrow of that rabbit," the large black dog shouted. He then turned to Ling Han and said, "Brat, are you interested in teaming up with me? Did you truly think that was a rabbit?" Ling Han was astonished upon hearing this. "What? Don't tell me that was a celestial medicine? Hee, did you think Grandpa Dog would be so shallow? Did you think I would go to such lengths for a snack?" the large black dog said in disdain. "If you're not shallow, who is?" Ling Han said with laughter. "Piss off. Do you know how to chat properly?" the large black dog said in contempt. "Since it's celestial medicine, let's chase after it together," Ling Han said in eagerness. They started to follow the large white rabbit's trails. The large black dog's nose was extremely sensitive, and it was without a doubt that he was a born thief. After 2 hours or so, they finally caught up to the large white rabbit. It was squatting on a small hill, and happily nibbling on the carrot in its hands. When Ling Han had first seen the rabbit, the carrot in its hands had been 1 foot long. Despite the rabbit chewing on it for so long, the carrot was still strangely the same length. "Fool, the true body of this celestial medicine is a valuable ginseng. The rabbit is merely a temporary body that it summoned," the large black dog said. As if it understood everything, it continued, "Tisk, tsk, tsk. However, this celestial medicine has undergone some unexpected changes. It surprisingly possesses a powerful engulfing ability. Perhaps it's absorbed 2 regulations at once?" Ling Han's eyes involuntarily lit up. The ability to engulf things was an extremely powerful regulation. In fact, this was an ability that would allow one to engulf all other regulations. Engulfing was equivalent to absorbing, and this was completely different from pure defense. "What's the other regulation?" Ling Han asked. "It's a lightning element regulation," the large black dog replied. "Otherwise, without the speed of lightning, How could it have fled from Grandpa Dog for so long? Grandpa Dog isn't boasting, but my speed is unrivaled among those below the level of Celestial King. You're boasting a little too much, no? Ling Han couldn't be bothered retorting him, and he said, do you have any good plan? Of course, the large black dog said with a nod. Rush over and capture the rabbit. Fuck. Isn't that nonsense? Chapter 1800, Double Loss. They definitely had to capture this celestial medicine. However, the most important thing was, how would they do so? Sure enough, he couldn't rely on the large black dog. Ling Han shook his head and cast these thoughts from his mind. He then directly charged over. As he leaped forward, he unleashed his flame control technique, immediately transforming his 9 heavens flame into a flaming blade that slashed at the celestial medicine. However, he certainly didn't want to damage the celestial medicine, so he would immediately retract his attack if it were truly about to strike the celestial medicine. Upon seeing Ling Han's attack, the large white rabbit immediately stopped nibbling on its carrot. It then quickly turned around to flee. Its speed was far too high. In fact, it was several times quicker than Ling Han, even though it had only started moving after he had unleashed his attack. The large white rabbit forcefully created a huge distance between itself and Ling Han. Banish. Ling Han roared as he unleashed his regulations of space, and made a pressing motion at the void. However, the large white rabbit's reaction was extraordinary, and it managed to smoothly dodge this attack with a sudden stop and a quick turn. It then calmly bounced away, instantly disappearing into the distance. Ling Han was dumbfounded. This was the first time that his banishing technique had failed to work. Moreover, it was also the first time that it had failed to hit its target. The banishing technique wouldn't be effective simply after being unleashed. Rather, this technique had to strike its target for its effect to take place. For example, one could unleash this technique on themselves, on oncoming attacks, or even on the power of regulations. Everything could be banished. The only difference was how long different things could be banished for. In fact, even attacks from celestial kings could be banished. However, perhaps they could only be banished for 1/1 trillionth of a heartbeat before the banishing technique was comprehensively crushed. Anyhow, the problem right now was that the rabbit would evade the banishing technique before it even landed. As such, Ling Han's technique was rendered completely ineffective. The large black dog had said that this celestial medicine also possessed a lightning element regulation. By the looks of it, he wasn't wrong. Otherwise, there was simply no way the rabbit could be so agile and quick. The large black dog howled with laughter, and said, ha 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 ha. Little Han, hurry up and give chase. Go on, give chase. Ling Han rolled his eyes, and said, it's as if you can eat the celestial medicine if I can't capture it or something. Of course, the large black dog said with a solemn nod. However, he immediately started to howl with laughter again, saying, anyway, I find it extremely funny. What are you going to do? Are you going to bite me? Rascal. Ling Han didn't want to stoop to the same level as the large black dog. This celestial medicine possessed the speed of lightning, so it was genuinely extremely difficult to capture. He had to think of another method. After a short while, they caught up to the celestial medicine once again. Perhaps the celestial medicine was stupid, or perhaps it was purposefully provoking them. In any case, it surprisingly hadn't run too far into the distance. Right now, it was squatting on the ground, and pretending to nibble on some medicine. Ling Han retrieved the 7 lives divine cloud, and commanded it to persuade the large white rabbit. When it was necessary, he wasn't afraid of selling the body of his celestial medicines. I won't sell my A*S, the 7 lives divine cloud said gravely. However, Ling Han immediately kicked its bottom and sent it flying toward the large white rabbit. Ow! Holy Mother of God! Pung! It crashed into the ground before the large white rabbit. "Hi, I'm Little Seven," the 7 Lives Divine Cloud said with an obsequious smile. "Brother, what's your name?" After staring at it for a moment, the large white rabbit's ruby-red eyes instantly lit up. It then lunged over and bit down at the 7 Lives Divine Cloud. "Good Lord," the 7 Lives Divine Cloud exclaimed as it frantically turned around to flee. However, the large white rabbit was far too quick. With a crunch, it bit down on the bottom of the little deer that the 7 Lives Divine Cloud had transformed into. Ow wow. The 7 Lives Divine Cloud reared its deer head and furiously tried to break free. Pooh! It dashed forward, yet there was a gaping wound on its bottom. Medicinal juice spurted into the air, and was quickly sucked up by the large white rabbit. Not a single drop was wasted. Holy sh*t. Save me, the 7 Lives Divine Cloud shouted as it frantically sprinted toward Ling Han. "I'm not playing with that rabbit anymore. This isn't a case of selling my A*s at all. In fact, my A*s has been fucking bitten off." However, the large white rabbit wasn't willing to spare its prey, and it speedily chased after the 7 Lives Divine Cloud. Ling Han immediately lashed out. After all, he naturally wouldn't allow the large white rabbit to engulf his celestial medicine. His fist shot forward, and his 9 heavens flame transformed into a long whip that cracked down at the large white rabbit. The large white rabbit hadn't been interested in fighting before. After being pursued by the large black dog for so long, it had still quickly spat him back out after swallowing him. This time, however, it was brimming with fighting spirit. It furiously opened its giant black hole-like mouth. However, right after biting down, it immediately released its grip again. This was because the 9 heavens flame was far too terrifying. Fortunately, its Toa-Tai mouth was only a mystical power, and not its actual body. Otherwise, it would have been burnt to a crisp. Even so, it still suffered severe wounds. After all, that was the 9 heavens flame. "Brat, my A*s has been devoured," the 7 Lives Divine Cloud wailed in agony. Even though it could regrow its damaged body parts, each part of its body possessed a portion of medicinal essence. In other words, losing a part of its body was equivalent to losing a part of its essence. Ling Han was also extremely unhappy. This was a loss on top of a loss. He tossed the 7 Lives Divine Cloud back into the Black Tower before casting his gaze toward the rabbit. There was great animosity between them now, so he definitely had to capture this celestial medicine. This celestial medicine has definitely undergone some peculiar transformation, the large black dog said with absolute certainty. Theoretically speaking, a celestial medicine can only contain a single regulation. However, the environment here is far too harsh and complex. As such, it's caused this celestial medicine to undergo some kind of mysterious transformation. In fact, this celestial medicine is definitely a tyrant among celestial medicines. It wants to engulf other celestial medicines to rapidly evolve. As if proving the large black dog's point, large lumps suddenly started to appear on the rabbit's body. They were like scuttling rats, and with a violent roar, the head of the rabbit instantly transformed into a wolf's head. After absorbing a wisp of the 7 Lives Divine Cloud's essence, it's actually obtained the 7 Lives Divine Cloud's ability of transformation, the large black dog exclaimed. His eyes lit up, and he shouted, "Rabbit, transform into a dog head for me." Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle, and say, "Dogs and wolves are fairly similar. Cut the rabbit some slack. Piss off. They're completely different. Even 10,000 wolves are worth less than a single hair of Grandpa Dog," the large black dog said in disdain. The wolf-headed rabbit wore a cold expression as it stared at Ling Han, and there was surprisingly a hint of human-like brutality in its expression. However, it resolutely turned around and bounced off into the distance. It knew that Ling Han was no pushover, and celestial medicines weren't skilled in fighting either. If it weren't for the peculiar transformations that it had undergone, it could have only fled if it had come across any cultivator. Now, however, it was able to engage in several exchanges with Ling Han. This was fairly incredible. It's developed intelligence, so it won't be easy to capture. Ling Han said in disappointment. He didn't pursue the celestial medicine anymore, as doing so would simply be a waste of time and effort. He decided to capture the celestial medicine after he became stronger. They continued to venture toward the depths of the plain. After 5 or so days, a small village suddenly appeared before them. However, this village was abandoned and run down, and only a stretch of ruins remained in its place. A wizened white tree stood in this village, and it appeared extremely uncanny and out of place. "Brat, have you realized? That's a white demon tree," the large black dog suddenly exclaimed. Although white demon trees don't have a long lifespan, and although they're useless while they're alive, they can absorb all kinds of violent and chaotic auras after they die. By doing so, they can grow a demonized tree heart. This tree heart can boost a man's sex drive. Holy fuck. Chapter 1801, White Demon Tree. *TTY dog, are you asking for a beating? Ling Han said with a dark expression. Hee, judging from your lack of strength, you're definitely suffering from renal deficiency, the large black dog said as he pushed Ling Han's shoulder. He was standing on his hind legs like a human, and he continued in a suggestive voice, "Take care to nourish yourself. Otherwise, your neighbor adulterer might seize this opportunity to do something untoward. Piss off." Ling Han said as he tried to kick the large black dog aside. However, the large black dog nimbly dodged his kick before saying with a solemn expression, "Fine, I won't joke around with you anymore. Say, why are you so uptight? This white demon tree can absorb all kinds of auras and ultimately form a murderous aura. If you can refine this aura, your attacks will be imbued with a soaring murderous aura. They'll be incredibly astounding. Moreover, if you're fortunate enough, you might even be able to cultivate the regulation of slaughter from this aura. At that time, you'll possess an overwhelming advantage even if you come across fellow kings among kings." Ling Han was slightly puzzled, and he said, "Little Black, you don't seem like a good person at all, so why are you suddenly doing something good?" "Fuck. It's because you seem decent that I'm giving you this opportunity. If you don't want it, then so be it." The large black dog huffed. "Why don't you take it for yourself?" Ling Han asked. It had been much the same during their trip through the Han clan's mountain of treasures. They had obtained the 7 lives divine cloud, yet the large black dog hadn't asked for any of it from Ling Han. Now that they had come across the white demon tree, he was acting in a similar fashion again. Thinking even further back, the large black dog had never taken advantage of him even though he would screw him over from time to time. In fact, Ling Han had always gotten the better end of the deals. This was inconsistent with the large black dog's personality. "I'm a divine hound of heaven and earth, and I was born powerful and mighty. As such, I don't need help from these external matters," the large black dog said with a haughty expression. "Go on, keep boasting," Ling Han said. He naturally didn't believe the large black dog. Perhaps this large black dog was extremely patient and cunning, and it was planning to help him reach a supreme cultivation level, at which time it would snatch his fruits of cultivation. Or perhaps this detestable dog was truly helping him and acting in his best interests. However, did such unconditional love truly exist in the world? "You can trust this detestable dog," Small Tower suddenly said. Ling Han was astonished, and he asked, "How do you know?" "Huh. It can't be that you were already acquainted with him since long ago, right?" This wasn't impossible. After all, the large black dog had been dug out from some ancient site in the celestial realm by Gu Daoi during his first lifetime. Even though he had only been a pup at that time, it was hard to say whether the large black dog was in his second lifetime, third lifetime, or even fourth lifetime. As long as their divine sense was powerful enough, Celestials could easily change their physical body. Small Tower pondered for a moment before saying, "I still have yet to recover much of my memories. However, I have a feeling that this detestable dog is trustworthy." You guys were definitely acquainted before, Ling Han said with certainty. Otherwise, how could Small Tower have developed such a feeling? Why didn't Small Tower develop such feelings toward other people? Moreover, the large black dog was also extremely helpful and caring of him. Although the large black dog always screwed him over, it was without a doubt that he cared for him like a senior cared for their junior. The Tower of Three Realms and the large black dog. Just what kind of relationship did they have in the past? Ling Han didn't question Small Tower anymore. Regardless of whether it was Small Tower or the large black dog, both of them had large gaps in their memories. Even if they didn't, they were still unwilling to go into great detail about this topic. Thus, it was useless to press them any further. Let's go and get the tree heart, Ling Han said with a chuckle. Demonized tree heart. The large black dog stressed. The three people walked into the village. In fact, even the tallest walls here could only reach their knees. As such, their vision wasn't obstructed at all, and it was as if the white demon tree was resting right before them. Anyhow, apart from its shape, this white demon tree didn't seem like a tree at all. There were numerous human faces on the trunk of the tree, and this sight was as hair-raising and harrowing as could be. Huh! Something's not right, the large black dog exclaimed and suddenly stopped. He carefully observed the white demon tree. What's wrong? Ling Han asked and halted. He immediately held the Empress back. He also found the white demon tree extremely uncanny and strange, especially the numerous faces on its trunk. Something's very wrong. The large black dog shook his head, and said, in fact, everything here seems a little off. White demon tree, someone behind them suddenly exclaimed in astonishment. They then hurriedly dashed over, completely ignoring the presence of Ling Han and the others. They resolutely charged toward the white demon tree. If the other party hadn't been so arrogant and frantic, Ling Han would have called out in warning. However, since the former was so intent on snatching the treasure, why did Ling Han need to warn him of any potential dangers? Meanwhile, the large black dog was even more evil, saying, just at the right time. We can use this ugly fool to probe the white demon tree and see what's wrong with it. This was a man of around 30 years old in appearance. At this moment, he had already drawn his broadsword and hacked at the white demon tree. In any case, only the tree heart was useful, and the man had simply hacked his broadsword at the root of the tree. As such, he wouldn't damage the tree heart by accident. Moreover, he had also noticed that something was off with the white demon tree, so he appeared much more careful than just then. Although he hadn't used his full power, the might of his hack was still fairly immense. A glow of regulations appeared on the blade of the broadsword, and it was as if it were unleashing the fury of the heavens. At this moment, an uncanny sight suddenly appeared. As if it were alive, the trunk of the tree surprisingly split apart and furiously released a burst of green mist, completely enveloping the man. When the green mist disappeared, the man was already completely trapped. The green mist had transformed into a sticky liquid, and not only was it incredibly sticky, but it was also extremely tough. The man wasn't able to break free from it no matter what he did. His face was green with fright. It was also at this moment that he discovered that the sticky liquid possessed a powerful toxin that was coursing through his body, and causing him to become weaker and weaker. Shatter, he roared as he unleashed his origin power protective barrier, and furiously resisted the invasion of the poisonous sticky liquid. However, his protective barrier was barely effective, and it looked as if it were about to collapse at any moment. Meanwhile, a vine suddenly shot out from the trunk of the white demon tree, and it wrapped around the man like a tongue and pulled him toward the tree. Save me, the man shouted as he looked toward Ling Han and the Empress. When he saw the Empress, he couldn't help but feel stunned by her breathtaking beauty. In fact, he even forgot to shout for help for a brief moment. The Empress had already reverted to her original appearance, so it was only natural that her beauty was astounding and irresistible. How could one not be attracted by her stunning beauty? Ling Han chuckled as he lunged toward the white demon tree, with his 9 heavens flame transforming into a divine sword as he did so. He wasn't charging over to specifically save the man, but rather couldn't be bothered to wait any longer. Boom! As the flaming sword slashed over, the white demon tree immediately released another burst of green mist toward Ling Han. Shatter! Ling Han shouted as he swung his sword. This was also a slashing attack, yet Ling Han's attack was evidently different from the man's. As his flaming blade soared over, the green mist was instantly reduced to ashes. Just how devastating was the Nine Heavens flame? Ling Han immediately unleashed another slash. Pooh! There was a flash of sword chi, and the tongue that was wrapped around the man was immediately severed. Ling Han unleashed several more strikes, and as flames burst forth, even the green liquid on the man was burnt to a crisp. The man hurriedly crawled up from the ground, and sprinted back wherever he had come from. He had already been scared out of his mind. Meanwhile, Ling Han continued to advance toward the white demon tree. At this moment, the faces on the white demon tree suddenly started to contort, and the trunk of the tree also started to split apart. Pa, 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 pa. Numerous headless corpses collapsed onto the ground. These corpses were filled with countless wounds and holes due to corrosion, yet they surprisingly started to crawl up. This was as eerie as could be. Chapter 1802, Intolerable. Ling Han frowned upon seeing this. As expected, something's wrong, the large black dog murmured from behind him. He could still consider the green mist attack and tongue attack from before as instinctive actions from wood element beings, yet this sudden release of corroded corpses was definitely not a skill that wood element beings should possess. Perhaps this tree was relying on its green mist to capture prey, which it would then digest in its body? Perhaps these corpses were prey that it hadn't finished digesting yet? Gasp! If that were the case, then these corpses all belonged to people who had entered the mystery realm this time. Pa, 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 pa. At least a dozen or so headless corpses stood up. Their bodies swayed about, and they were radiating with a rotten smell of death that would cause one to vomit. My head. My head. Return my head. The headless corpses released their thoughts, which formed a wave-like ripple. This was extremely strange. Without a mouth, how could one speak? Similarly, without a head, how could one convey their thoughts? As such, how were these headless corpses relaying their thoughts? Since they didn't have heads, they naturally didn't have any eyes, either, yet it was as if all of them had eyes that were staring at Ling Han. As they raised their arms, their flesh fell from their bones until only their skeleton was left. However, there were still scraps of rotten flesh attached to the bones, and they looked as repulsive as could be. After a short pause, these headless corpses then charged toward Ling Han at an incredible speed. I'll send you all to the afterlife, Ling Han said with a cold expression. He launched a punch that was imbued with the soaring power of lightning, causing a sea of lightning to form before him. Shio, shio, shio. However, the headless corpses were extremely agile, and as they jumped, they easily dodged Ling Han's attack. Interesting. Ling Han released a battle cry before wielding an expanse of lightning as if he were the son of lightning. Boom! He finally clashed with the headless corpses, yet he was surprisingly sent flying backward like a cannonball. However, the headless corpses were also dealt a heavy blow. After all, the power of lightning was no joke. Crackle. Blinding white lightning arced through the air, and it was as if the headless corpses were performing a jerky dance, with each of their bones shuddering uncontrollably. Ling Han bared his teeth in pain as he picked himself up from the ground. He felt as if all of his bones had been loosened by the devastating clash. As he stood up, he was still a bit dazed, so he couldn't help but stumble a little. Ah! As if suffering unimaginable pain, the faces on the white demon tree released a piercing and contorted cry. Pooh! The white demon tree released another burst of green mist that enveloped all of the headless corpses. The arcs of lightning on the headless corpses instantly died down, and after a short moment, they completely vanished. This first exchange ended in a draw. After recovering, the headless corpses immediately launched another wave of attack at Ling Han. Some of them lunged into the air, while others directly charged toward him head-on. Some of them also dashed over from his sides. The headless corpses fully utilized their advantage in numbers. At this moment, a sinister gleam suddenly flashed across the eyes of the man that Ling Han had saved. To everyone's surprise, he suddenly lunged over to attack the Empress. This woman was far too beautiful, and her stunning beauty caused his heart to beat in excitement. Ling Han had saved him, yet he was now attacking the Empress and attempting to kidnap her now that Ling Han was being surrounded by a group of headless corpses. Moreover, he was attacking the Empress from behind. With his 4th Severance cultivation level, he was confident that he could capture her without a hitch. However, just as lunged forward, he suddenly felt an agonizing pain traveling over from his bottom. He instantly roared in pain, and his voice was as miserable and shrill as could be. He observed the surroundings with his divine sense, only to discover that a large black dog had chomped down on his bottom at some unknown time. Gasp! When did this dog lunge over? You're seeking death. The Empress roared as she hurriedly turned around. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. She wasn't enraged because he was repaying kindness with evil. Rather, she was enraged because such trash actually dared to target and attack her. After all, with her proud and haughty personality, she couldn't care less whom they saved at all. Anyhow, she wouldn't take these matters to heart. However, was she someone whom any random person could violate? She immediately raised her hand. Swoosh! Countless rays of sword light furiously slashed toward the man. The man was completely stunned. This attack was far too terrifying. It was imbued with countless powers of regulations, and it was as if the entire Great Tao were crushing down toward him. He felt as if he were about to be crushed into nothingness. Pung! He was instantly sent flying, transforming into a tiny black dot in the distance. Why has Grandpa Dog also been sent flying? The large black dog's voice traveled over from the distance. He was still biting the man's bottom, so he was naturally sent flying with him as well. Ling Han humped upon seeing this, and he immediately launched an attack to push the headless corpses aside. At this moment, his entire body was shrouded in lightning. Pung! His legs bent slightly, and he immediately launched himself into the sky. Crackle! Channeling his power of lightning and also using his brute strength, he was able to lunge into the air at an incredibly quick speed. He instantly caught up to the man, and he easily grabbed him before returning to the rundown village. Spare me, the man stammered. Ling Han smiled, and said, even though I saved you, I didn't ask you to repay me or anything. Yet, you actually decided to repay my kindness with evil. This is taking things too far, and it's not something that I can tolerate. I won't kill you, either, but I've decided to rescind my decision to save you. No. No. No, the man exclaimed in shock. He almost wet his pants in fright. However, Ling Han completely ignored him as he tossed him back to the white demon tree. The white demon tree immediately released a burst of green mist before unleashing a long vine that grabbed the man, and pulled him toward the trunk of the tree. There was terror on the man's face. He could naturally guess that all of the headless corpses were people who had been dragged into the trunk of the white demon tree. Afterward, their heads had disappeared, and their power had also been slowly absorbed. In fact, even their corpse would be controlled to do battle. Save me! Save me! Save me! The man screamed in despair. Ling Han wore a cold expression, and he was completely unmoving. The Empress was more so wearing an expression of pride and haughtiness. In her eyes, only Ling Han and those who were close to him were worthy of her attention. Others were like nothing more than sand and dust. It mattered little whether they lived or died. Ah! The agonized wails of the man instantly halted as he was dragged into the trunk of the white demon tree. You've inflicted this fate upon yourself. Ling Han said coldly. Had that man truly thought that he was a foolishly benevolent person? The large black dog ran over to the Empress and said, "Can you be softer next time?" Grandpa Dog was almost torn apart. The Empress completely ignored his question. She was incredibly proud and haughty. Because it had captured another prey, the white demon tree didn't launch another wave of attacks at Ling Han. Instead, the headless corpses retreated to its side as if they were protecting it. "The beings here have all developed a powerful ability of slaughter," the large black dog said. "Theoretically speaking, the white demon tree should have only been able to absorb all kinds of violent and chaotic auras. In other words, it should have only been able to threaten cultivators using its murderous aura. Now, however, it was actually swallowing the physical bodies of cultivators, and even using their headless corpses to do battle. This far exceeded his expectations and imagination. The white demon tree started to squirm in a rhythmic manner. After a short while, a new face appeared on its trunk. This face also wore an agonized expression, and it was as if the person had suffered unimaginable torture before their death. Pooh! A headless corpse suddenly fell out. It was initially dazed, yet it quickly locked its senses onto Ling Han. "Where's my head?" Chapter 1803, Capturing the Demonic Tree. "This is truly a demonic tree," Ling Han remarked. The Empress nodded in agreement. She was indeed proud and haughty, yet she definitely wouldn't be careless during this kind of critical moment. The headless corpses encircled them again, yet they stopped 60 or so meters away from Ling Han. It was as if this distance was their limit, and they couldn't advance any further. Ling Han chuckled before actively charging toward the monstrosities. "You truly think that I can't deal with you monsters," he said with a humph. He immediately unleashed his cracking light sphere before shouting, "Explode!" Boom! As the headless corpses lunged over, the cracking light sphere had already exploded with a resounding rumble. Lightning arced through the air, and this was an incredibly devastating power. Pa, 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 pa. The headless corpses were all blasted back, and several of them were directly blasted into smithereens under the overwhelming power of the lightning. Meanwhile, Ling Han stealthily reappeared again. Just then, he had activated the banishing technique to hide in a separate dimension. By doing so, he had avoided the devastating shock waves of his own attack. Indeed, the explosion of the cracking light sphere would even affect him, the wielder. Right now, there were still 7 headless corpses that hadn't been destroyed yet. However, they were all missing either arms or legs, meaning that their battle prowess was much weaker than before. Seeing this, Ling Han immediately charged forward to attack the demonic tree. He was going to take it down in one fell swoop. Whoosh! The remaining headless corpses immediately lunged toward Ling Han to stop him with their bodies. "Piss off!" Ling Han roared. He unleashed the might of the Xianin source water, instantly freezing all of the headless corpses. He then launched a furious punch toward them. Crack! The headless corpses were all smashed into broken shards of ice. The faces of the trunk of the white demon tree instantly contorted, and it was as if they were facing some kind of unimaginable terror. Pooh, pu, pu. The trunk of the tree split open again, and it spat out numerous additional headless corpses. This time, however, all of the corpses were relatively old. Only their bones remained, and all of their flesh had already disappeared. These skeletons locked onto Ling Han, and even though they didn't have skulls, it still felt as if they were staring at him. More and more of these skeletons fell out from the white demon tree. "Fuck! You bloody demonic tree! Do you have a sick hobby of collecting corpses?" Ling Han murmured. He couldn't help but feel disgusted by this sight. This white demon tree was like a black hole that could spit out corpse after corpse. In just a short moment, several hundred corpses had already been released from the trunk of the white demon tree. Right now, they were standing around it like guards. The white demon tree raised its leafless branches slightly, and upon receiving this signal, the army of skeletons instantly charged toward Ling Han. Pu. When these skeletons neared Ling Han, they all extended their arms to release bursts of green liquid toward him. With hundreds of skeletons performing this action in unison, this was an incredibly astounding sight. A dizzying smell instantly rushed into Ling Han's nose, causing his entire body to become weak. It was as if he were about to collapse into a heap. Poison. Ling Han immediately channeled his 9 heavens flame. Boom! A barrier of flames instantly materialized around him, vaporizing all of the green liquid, and it turned into black smoke. With a single thought, he immediately activated his flame control technique as well. The flames in the surroundings instantly fell under his control, and he gathered these flames into a blazing fireball with the 9 heavens flame as a medium. 10 Beasts Technique. Ling Han activated yet another celestial technique. Pa. The flames immediately transformed into 10 immortal beasts. In the past, he had only been capable of summoning 3 immortal beasts. This was due to the limitation of his origin power. Here, however, there were far too many elemental particles of flames in the surroundings, and these were all particles that he could absorb and use. Thus, he was easily able to summon 10 immortal beasts. Moreover, these were all extremely powerful immortal beasts. If it weren't for the limitation of his cultivation level, Ling Han could have summoned immortal beasts that were at the dividing soul tier. Even so, the beasts that he had summoned were already at the peak stage of the 4th Severance. Moreover, they were all powerful king tiers. The 10 immortal beasts were blazing with flames as they lunged forward, and these were flames that even dividing soul tier elites had to use their full power to resist. In fact, after reaching this location, even immortal palace tier elites needed to rely on blood dragon armors to resist the power of the chaotic fire particles. It was only because the white demon tree was native to this land that it wasn't targeted by the chaotic fire particles. However, because of Ling Han's manipulation and the appearance of the 10 battle beasts, things had become completely different. Boom. The 10 battle beasts unleashed their formidable might, pushing the skeletons over. As they released their scorching flames, the skeletons were more so incinerated, transforming into ashes. The 10 battle beasts were formidable as they charged forward and obliterated the army of skeletons. Expressions of terror spread across the faces on the trunk of the white demon tree again. However, Ling Han was speechless when he discovered that the demonic tree was slowly sinking into the ground. It was as if it were attempting to stealthily escape. Can you flee? Ling Han said with a humph. The 9 heavens flames surged forth, forming a giant net that locked the surrounding heaven and earth. The white demon tree had already developed intelligence, and it was, in fact, quite smart. Upon discovering that it had no path of escape, it resolutely abandoned all thoughts of escape. It then stared at Ling Han and split open its trunk again. Pu. Several things were spat out again. However, it wasn't headless corpses this time. Rather, these were the faces of men and women, all of which were filled with expressions of agony. These faces hovered in the air, and they started to slowly float toward Ling Han. After a brief moment, they suddenly spat a burst of black air in unison, and these bursts of black air transformed into countless swords and spears. There were constructs of regulations, and there were also flashing symbols of the Great Tao. This attack was extremely terrifying. Ling Han's physique was indeed powerful, and it allowed him to easily defend against purely physical attacks. However, it would be weaker against the power of regulations. Thus, even though those at the severing mundane tier couldn't kill Ling Han using brute strength, they would be able to refine him using the power of regulations. Anyhow, this attack naturally couldn't kill Ling Han. However, it would be capable of giving him some minor trouble. At the very least, it would cause him some pain. As such, Ling Han didn't want to face this attack head-on. He extended his arm and activated Tide of the Ages, aiming to age the attack from the white demon tree. This was the power of time, the most powerful regulation under the level of Celestial King tier. It was naturally formidable, and it instantly decomposed the attacks from the swords, spears, and whatever else was flying toward him. It was as if Ling Han were taking a casual stroll as he neared the white demon tree. As he advanced, he also continued to snap his fingers and unleash bursts of sword chi that obliterated the faces in the air. These people had already died, so they were better off returning to the earth. The white demon tree made one final struggle, opening its trunk to unleash a boundless murderous aura. This was a unique type of tree that absorbed all kinds of violent and chaotic auras to grow, so it was only natural that they possessed bursts of extremely concentrated murderous auras inside their bodies. As it radiated outward, the murderous aura transformed into a black skeleton that wielded a giant scythe. The scythe swung down, and Ling Han could feel a tearing pain on his skin even before the blade of the scythe reached him. He humped softly, and he immediately activated his water element source power as he unleashed a punch. Pa! The entire white demon tree was frozen in place. With a wave of his hand, Ling Han immediately absorbed the white demon tree into the black tower. Done and dusted. Hand the white demon tree over, a cold voice suddenly shouted. Ling Han looked over, only to see a man dashing over from the distance. His expression was incredibly domineering and haughty. This man was extremely young, and his appearance was also very handsome. However, Ling Han didn't recognize him at all. For what reason? Ling Han asked calmly. If you don't, you'll die, the young man said in an ice-cold voice. This was a mystery realm, so it was extremely natural for people to die here. Anyhow, there would be no ill consequences as long as one killed all of the witnesses. Of course, people wouldn't dare to kill successors of Celestial King tier forces such as Zai Bingyun and Luo Changfeng even if they had the opportunity to do so. Otherwise, that would be taking an extraordinary risk. If the Celestial King tier forces couldn't find the culprit, they might simply kill everyone who was related to the case. Trying to reason with a Celestial King tier force? That would be far too foolish and naive. However, there were only 2 successors of Celestial King tier forces inside this mystery realm. Moreover, Ling Han clearly wasn't one of them. Chapter 1804, Paper Human. I don't believe you. Ling Han said with a shake of his head. The young man snickered, and said, I'm Nangong Ting, the holy son of the lunar sect. He was telling Ling Han to consider the consequences of becoming enemies with him. Ling Han smiled, and said, Isn't Bei Xianming the holy son of the lunar sect? Humph, that trash. Nangong Ting scoffed. His expression was filled with disdain, and he said with a frown, Enough with the nonsense. Hurry up and hand the white demon tree over. He had set his eyes on the demonic tree since a long time ago. However, the previous time that he had come, he hadn't had any confidence in defeating it at all. This time was different. Firstly, he had already advanced from the 3rd Severance to the 4th Severance, meaning that his battle prowess had increased by several times. Secondly, he had borrowed a treasure that would allow him to suppress the white demon tree. He had initially been brimming with confidence, and he had believed that apart from kings among kings such as Zai Bingyun and Luo Changfeng, no one else could defeat and obtain the demonic tree. However, upon arriving, he discovered that the demonic tree had already been taken by someone else. Even though he hadn't met all of the holy sons, holy daughters, and successors of the 3-star forces, he possessed all of their general information. As such, he knew that Ling Han wasn't one of them. Thus, even though he was slightly apprehensive of Ling Han, he was confident that he could definitely deal with him. However, since Ling Han was relatively strong, he didn't attack straight away. He didn't want to waste his time and energy on Ling Han. If he could resolve this with words, why would he choose to battle instead? Ling Han chuckled and said, In my eyes, you're no better than Bei Xianming. Impudence. You actually dare to compare me to that trash? Nangong Ting shouted in rage. That trash had actually been defeated by someone at the same cultivation level as him. At the same time, his marriage with the Fu clan had also seemingly fallen through. As such, Nan Gongting viewed him with utter contempt and disdain. How was such trash worthy of being a fellow holy son? Are you intent on seeking death? Nan Gongting asked with a sneer. He slowly pushed his palm upward. Boom! A wisp of flames burst to life in his palm before quickly growing into a large fireball that was pulsating with symbols of the Great Tao. Don't you know that I'm a fire element cultivator? If we fight here, my battle prowess will increase by at least twofold, he said in a haughty voice. However, the battle prowess of others won't increase by a single bit. Instead, their battle prowess will be suppressed. Are you sure you want to fight with me? The Empress stepped forward and said in a cold voice, "Piss off." Nan Gongting was infuriated. This woman actually dared to tell him to piss off. Just how audacious was she? He was just about to scold the Empress, yet upon glancing at her, his words instantly became stuck in his throat. This. How can such a stunningly beautiful woman exist in the world? He had seen bewitching Maiden Ro before, and he had been astonished by her breathtaking beauty at the time. He had viewed her as the most beautiful and most charming woman in the entire world, and he had thought that her beauty couldn't possibly be surpassed. However, the heavens always performed miracles, and an even more beautiful and noble woman had now appeared before him. Her beauty was such that one would want to bow down and kowtow to her. Ha ha ha. He suddenly burst into laughter, and killing intent wantonly radiated from his body. He hadn't wanted to fight with Ling Han just then, and he had simply wanted to take the white demon tree from him. After all, Ling Han was definitely a powerful cultivator. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to defeat and obtain the demonic tree. Thus, it was best that they could resolve things peacefully. Now, however, he had changed his mind. He wanted this woman. He definitely had to obtain this woman. Ling Han saw the greed in his eyes. This was an expression of extreme lust. He involuntarily shook his head. This person was seeking death. Die! Nan Gongting roared as he unleashed the fireball from his palm. He would kill Ling Han and then capture the Empress. As for the large black dog, Nan Gongting completely ignored his presence. Ling Han also raised his hand toward the sky. Boom! Flames burst to life in his palm, and a fireball similarly formed in his hand. This fireball was twice the size of the one that Nan Gongting had summoned. Nan Gongting's eyes widened with shock and disbelief. You can summon more fire particles than me? With a gentle push, the fireball in Ling Han's hands burst forward. Boom! The two fireballs collided, instantly sending wisps of flames into the surroundings. This was a violent collision, and after a brief moment, Nan Gongting's fireball suddenly started to collapse. It transformed into hundreds of shards that flew into the surroundings. Meanwhile, only 1/3 of Ling Han's larger fireball had been consumed as it continued to hurtle toward Nan Gongting. Nan Gongting's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly jumped aside to avoid being struck head-on by the fireball. He was indeed powerful, and he managed to just barely dodge Ling Han's fireball. However, dodging the first attack didn't mean that he could dodge all of the subsequent attacks. Right after landing, his entire body immediately curled up in pain. At the same time, he howled in wretched pain. Just then, the large black dog had already teleported over to wait for him. *TTY brat, you dare to underestimate Grandpa Dog, the large black dog said in a smug voice as he loosened his bite. With a crunch, he immediately snapped his jaws down again. *TTY dog, let go. Nan Gongting roared in fury. Boom! Flames burst from his body, and symbols of the Great Tao started to pulsate around him. Being the holy son of a sect, he was naturally extremely powerful and talented. These flames were immensely destructive and terrifying, so much so that the large black dog had no option but to let go. Activating a teleportation technique, he immediately returned to Ling Han's side. Nan Gongting's face was twisted in anger and agony. In his mind, everything should have gone smoothly and easily. He should have killed Ling Han with ease before capturing that stunningly beautiful woman. Now, however, he hadn't obtained anything at all. Instead, he had been bitten by a rabid dog. "You people have successfully enraged me," he said in a cold voice. He retrieved a pouch and took something out from it. This was actually a paper human. Ling Han had initially thought that Nangong Ting was going to retrieve some incredible treasure, yet he had simply retrieved a paper human. Was this his trump card? Humph. A pained expression flashed across Nangong Ting's face. This was a treasure that he had borrowed from an elite in his sect. It was a consumable treasure, and it could only be used a limited number of times. He had initially planned to use it during more crucial times, yet for the sake of the White Demon Tree, he was willing to use it right here and right now. In fact, he had initially planned to use the paper human to suppress the White Demon Tree anyway. Upon tossing the paper human into the air, rays of brilliant light instantly burst forth from it. The paper human then started to expand, eventually transforming into a normal-sized person. Its upper body was covered in symbols of the Great Tao, and each symbol was as profound as could be. These were symbols that one could lose themselves in. "Kill him," Nangong Ting commanded as he pointed at Ling Han. The paper human immediately locked its gaze onto Ling Han. With a flash, it then instantly charged toward him. This paper human was extremely powerful. Ling Han launched a fist at the nearing paper human, yet he was immediately sent flying backward, with several bloody gashes appearing on his skin. "Pseudo-dividing soul tear," the large black dog exclaimed. "Little Han, be careful." The paper human was extremely quick as it pursued Ling Han, and as it raised its right hand, the symbols of the Great Tao transformed into a spear that viciously stabbed down. Ling Han's fighting spirit involuntarily soared. What did it matter that his opponent was a pseudo-dividing soul tier elite? He activated his lightning flash as he started to exchange strikes with the paper human. Pang, 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 pang. The paper human was extremely nimble, and it was able to block Ling Han's attacks regardless of how quickly he launched them. In fact, it was even able to occasionally counterattack. Moreover, its battle prowess was superior to Ling Han's, so each of its attacks was able to wound him slightly. Pseudo-dividing soul tier. This meant that the paper human already possessed a portion of the battle prowess of ordinary dividing soul tier elites. In reality, cultivators couldn't reach such a level. They would either be at the peak stage of the fourth Severance, or they would be at the dividing soul tier. However, created treasures and tools could reach such a level. The paper human unleashed its full might. Its power was such that it wouldn't trigger a backlash from the violent aura of the hidden dragon mystery realm. At the same time, however, it could easily crush all of the severing mundane tier cultivators in the mystery realm. In some sense, it could be viewed as an invincible opponent. Chapter 1805. How lofty is your goal? How would Ling Han deal with this formidable paper human? He had no other plans at this moment, and he simply yearned to exchange blows with this paper human. This was because battling against a powerful opponent could aid him in comprehending the Great Tao. After all, this immense pressure would force him to unleash his potential. Moreover, very few people could cause him to feel pain anymore. Ling Han's fighting spirit was raging, and he freely unleashed all kinds of celestial techniques. Apart from the Xianin source water and the Nine Heavens flame, he unleashed all of his other techniques. In terms of genuine strength alone, he was naturally no match for a pseudo-dividing soul tier elite. However, his physique was far too powerful, so much so that he was essentially undying. As such, what did it matter if he were wounded? He would simply regroup and launch into battle again. Are you a freak? Nangong Ting turned pale upon seeing this. Even if his opponent were a holy son or a holy daughter from a celestial king tier force, he was absolutely certain that they couldn't be any more freakish than Ling Han. Gasp. Who in the world is this person? However, a pseudo-dividing soul tier elite was a pseudo-dividing soul tier, after all. The paper human was incredibly quick, and it had already launched countless attacks in the blink of an eye. Even though Ling Han's recovery ability was freakish, it was still unable to keep up with the rate at which he was getting wounded. Thus, his wounds became more and more severe. Nan Gongting breathed a sigh of relief. By the looks of it, Ling Han was finally on the verge of being defeated. However, Nan Gongting was feeling extremely pained. He hadn't imagined that it would take so long to defeat Ling Han. This would consume a huge amount of the paper human's energy, and would thus leave a question mark on how many more times it could be used. In any case, he could at least obtain the White Demon Tree as well as a breathtakingly beautiful and charming woman. This was definitely worth it. Ling Han's wounds became increasingly severe. Not only was his flesh bloody and mangled, but even his bones could now be seen. Fortunately, his godly bones were extremely sturdy, so they still hadn't been broken. He was extremely satisfied, and he said, "Enough with the fun and games." Nan Gongting sneered upon hearing this. "You want to end the battle just like that? Do you even have a choice?" With a single thought, Ling Han immediately summoned 10 flaming battle beasts that lunged toward Nan Gongting. Meanwhile, he continued to battle against the paper human. Nan Gongting cursed in his mind, and hurriedly unleashed a celestial technique to block the 10 battle beasts. However, although these battle beasts weren't formed from source power, they were still incredibly powerful thanks to the profoundly high-level fire particles in the surroundings. Each of them could rival the battle prowess of a king tier at the peak stage of the 4th Severance, so each of them was more than powerful enough to rival Nan Gongting. With 10 of them present, how could Nan Gongting not be terrified? In just a few exchanges, Nan Gongting was already riddled with wounds, and he looked just as miserable as Ling Han was. At this moment, Ling Han circulated a drop of indestructible true fluid, fully healing his wounds. He then finally unleashed his trump cards in the Xianin Source Water and 9 Heavens Flame. Otherwise, he wouldn't be powerful enough to dispose of the paper human. With these 2 source powers unleashed, his situation instantly took a turn for the better. However, he was still at a slight disadvantage. Upon seeing this, Ling Han couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The gulf between severing mundane tier cultivators and dividing soul tier elites was truly far too great. Moreover, the paper human was only a pseudo-dividing soul tier elite. However, Ling Han should have considered the fact that he was only at the 2nd Severance, yet he was already able to battle against a pseudo-dividing soul tier elite for so long. This was simply unfathomable. Meanwhile, Nan Gongting was already starting to show signs of collapse. He was only at the early stage of the 4th Severance, and although he was a king tier, he would still be at a disadvantage even if he came across just a single battle beast. Thus, how could he rival 10 of them? Moreover, these were battle beasts that had been summoned by a celestial technique, meaning that they were undying and unafraid of being wounded. As such, he couldn't even threaten them with mutual destruction. The flame control technique and the 10 beasts technique, these were 2 celestial king tier techniques. Combined with the unique environment of this mystery realm, they had now formed this incredibly powerful battle prowess. Nan Gongting had no option but to command the paper human to rush over and protect him. Otherwise, he would definitely be killed by the 10 battle beasts. Ling Han naturally wouldn't allow this to happen. Relying on his powerful attacks, he forcefully prevented the paper human from rushing over to help Nan Gongting. Pooh! He violently spat a mouthful of blood. It was far too difficult to battle against a pseudo-dividing soul tier elite head-on. After all, its battle prowess could probably rival that of kings among kings at the peak stage of the 4th Severance. Right now, he was 2 entire minor levels weaker, so how could he not spit blood? In fact, it was thanks to his insane physique that he was able to battle against it until now. If it had been Luo Changfeng or Zai Bingyun, perhaps they would have already become a corpse by now. When Ling Han spat his 13th mouthful of blood, the paper human suddenly ground to a halt, stopping all of its attacks. Nan Gongting had already been brutally killed by the 10 battle beasts. The paper human faltered for a moment before suddenly turning around and sprinting toward the entrance of the mystery realm. Its speed was as quick as lightning. Without a master, it was naturally returning to its owner. However, this mystery realm was heaven knew how far away from the lunar sect, so it was hard to say whether the paper human had enough remaining energy to return. Anyhow, this wasn't something for Ling Han to worry about. After all, he would head to the Western Celestial Realm after leaving the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm. Would the lunar sect pursue him through the boundless seas to exact revenge? He retrieved a spatial ring from Nangong Ting's corpse. As he was the holy son of a 3-star sect, Nangong Ting's wealth was naturally quite remarkable. A satisfied smile spread across Ling Han's face. Killing enemies and snatching their wealth was indeed the quickest way to gain riches. Thus, it was best for others not to provoke him. Otherwise, Nangong Ting's today would be there tomorrow. Ling Han removed the tree heart of the white demon tree. It was a semi-transparent fist-sized crystal, and one could see mist-like matter swirling around on the inside. That was the most concentrated of murderous auras. After refining it, he could use it to comprehend the regulation of slaughter. The Empress stated that she didn't need this matter. Her path wasn't that of slaughter, so this tree heart was completely useless to her. In fact, it might even shake her Tao heart. Indeed, the demonized tree heart was a precious treasure, yet it was also a double-edged sword at the same time. If one weren't careful, they might end up wounding themselves instead. They might also undergo a huge change in personality, and that would be equivalent to becoming a completely different person. Ling Han had full confidence in himself, and he was certain that he wouldn't be affected by the negative emotions of the demonized tree heart. After resting for a while, they continued to venture through the plain. The large black dog suddenly waved at Ling Han and said, "Brat, come over here." "What crappy idea do you have now?" Ling Han asked in irritation. The large black dog was wearing a solemn expression, and he asked, "Brat, how lofty is your goal? Why have you suddenly become so serious?" "I can barely adjust to this," Ling Han said with a chuckle. "I'm being serious," the large black dog said with an expression of disdain. Ling Han pondered for a moment before answering, "My goal is naturally to become a celestial king." Becoming a celestial king seems like a huge goal, yet in reality, the large black dog stood up on his hind legs and clasped his front paws behind his back with a haughty posture before continuing, "Through the countless epochs, do you know how many celestial kings have appeared in the celestial realm? Don't tell me there are as many celestial kings as dogs." Ling Han said with a chuckle. "Although that's slightly exaggerated, there have definitely been more celestial kings than you can imagine," the large black dog said slowly. "After becoming a celestial king, one can truly break free from the immortal's calamity." "Through the countless epochs, Then why are there so few celestial kings now?" Ling Han asked in puzzlement. According to the large black dog, there should have been a huge number of celestial kings in existence. In fact, even one-star cities might have their own celestial king. The large black dog's expression became grave, and he said, "Because they've all died." Ling Han's expression involuntarily darkened. "Just then, you were still saying that there were as many celestial kings as dogs, and that they had already broken free from the immortal's calamity. Now, however, you're telling me that they've all died? Isn't this statement self-conflicting?" "Brat, you haven't understood my meaning," the large black dog said with a shake of his head. "Why have the celestial kings all died? It's because they weren't powerful enough." Ling Han spread his hands and said, "You're seriously confusing me." Chapter 1806, Fifth Severance. "The celestial realm isn't as peaceful as you think," the large black dog said solemnly. "So you're saying that there's some kind of profound karmic fate that even celestial kings can't avoid?" Ling Han asked. He kind of understood the large black dog's meaning now. The large black dog nodded and said, "This child can be taught. You've finally developed some intelligence." Ling Han also became serious, and he asked, what kind of karmic fate can cause celestial kings to die one after another? Strange. If such a grand battle has occurred, why do so few people in the celestial realm know about it? I'm not sure either, the large black dog replied as he scratched his head. He looked extremely unreliable at this moment. Ling Han couldn't help but ask, then how have you come to this conclusion? The large black dog glanced at him in disdain, and said, because of my memories, of course. You clearly don't remember this, so what memories are you speaking of? Ling Han retorted. Are you stupid or something? I've already lost my detailed memories of this matter, yet I can still remember the existence of the profound karmic fate. What does this mean? It means that this karmic fate is of incredible importance, the large black dog explained and shook his head. His face was filled with disdain. Ling Han stroked his chin, and asked, then how is this related to what you said in the beginning? How is it not related? The large black dog said with a scoff. If you're not powerful enough, you'll still be cannon fodder even if you've reached the Celestial King tier. The Celestial King tier is divided into 9 heavens, where each heaven is unfathomably more powerful than the last. A first heaven Celestial King coming across a second heaven Celestial King is equivalent to a severing mundane tier cultivator coming across a dividing soul tier elite. Moreover, if one wants to become a 9th heaven Celestial King, they need to reach a level of perfection in all of the previous cultivation levels. Ling Han smiled, and said, rest assured, I've reached a level of perfection in all of my cultivation levels. He wasn't boasting, as this was the reality. It's because of your conceited nature that I'm specifically warning you about this, the large black dog said in a haughty voice. Do you think that severing heaven and earth signify perfection? Ling Han was slightly astonished, and he asked, this doesn't signify perfection? No, no, no. The large black dog shook his head, and said, my memory tells me that this isn't enough to become a 9th heaven Celestial King, a heavenly venerate, or whatnot. Not only do you need to sever heaven and earth, but you even need to reach the 5th severance. 5th severance? Ling Han couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. Was this even possible? The 4th severance was the limit, and one wouldn't be able to sever anything else. Otherwise, they could only sever their own life. This was common knowledge. If one could continue to sever the mundane, then why didn't people reach the 5th severance, the 10th severance, or even the 100th severance? At that time, wouldn't they be able to crush even dividing soul tier elites and immortal palace tier elites? Since the minor tiers were designed as such, there was naturally a good reason behind it. Reaching this level is naturally extremely difficult. In fact, casting one's gaze through past and present, few people have managed to succeed. However, I know that if you want to reach the highest pinnacle of cultivation, you must reach the 5th severance, the large black dog said in a solemn voice. Severing heaven and earth can only allow you to become a king among kings. However, reaching the 5th severance can allow you to become one of the rare few paramounts in the world. However, this is only a possibility. If you don't reach the 5th severance, though, you won't even have the right to entertain this possibility. According to the large black dog, only those who had severed heaven and earth could advance to the Celestial King tier. Through the countless epochs, countless prodigies had managed to achieve this even though it was extremely difficult. As such, a large number of Celestial Kings had come and gone. Ling Han gazed at the large black dog, and asked, 5th severance? 5th severance. The large black dog replied with a nod. If you only want to become a Celestial King, you can continue to follow your current path. However, if you want to become a 9th heaven Celestial King, you have to take a path that's filled with many more obstructions and challenges. Moreover, you have to reach a level of perfection in not only the severing mundane tier, but also in the dividing soul tier, the immortal palace tier, and the ascending origin tier. You have to surpass all of the kings among kings. Only by doing so can you reach the pinnacle or even surpass the pinnacle. Ling Han pondered for a moment before asking, you mentioned heavenly venerate just then? What heavenly venerate? Did I ever say that? the large black dog asked with an expression of puzzlement. Did he mention it without knowing? Or is he purposefully acting oblivious? Ling Han still remembered Small Tower referring to the original owner of the Black Tower as a heavenly venerate. Was this a title of respect, or was it some kind of cultivation level? However, neither Small Tower nor the large black dog appeared keen to delve deeper into this topic. Thus, Ling Han didn't push them on it either. In any case, he would eventually reach this level one day. If he couldn't reach it, what would it matter whether he knew about it or not? Why are you suddenly telling me about this? Ling Han asked. I need to head somewhere soon, the large black dog replied as he gazed into the distance. His gaze was profound, and his expression was extremely solemn. Where? Ling Han asked in surprise. By telling him this so suddenly, it was as if the large black dog were making arrangements for after his death. Was he about to go to some incredibly dangerous place? An incredibly dangerous place, the large black dog said in a low voice. There was an air of tragedy and heroism about him. Ling Han frowned, and asked, What in the world are you planning to do? In the past, the large black dog recollected his memories for a moment before continuing. I promised myself that I would steal Celestial King Ling Miao's panties. Now that Grandpa Dog has returned to the celestial realm, it's time for me to act on this promise. When the large black dog finished speaking, his tongue was hanging out, and his eyes were gleaming with excitement. Fuck. Ling Han immediately launched a kick. He had thought that the large black dog was finally becoming serious for once, yet he had been as wrong as could be. Little Han, don't cross the river and destroy the bridge. Grandpa Dog has finally seen you for what you are, you ungrateful wretch, the large black dog shouted as he dodged Little Han's attacks. Ling Han chuckled coldly in reply. They continued to advance. This plain was astonishingly large, and it was also riddled with all kinds of unknown dangers. In fact, just flipping a rock might release a burst of chaotic aura that would transform into arrows and swords and attack those nearby. To say nothing of Ling Han, who was only at the second Severance, even those at the Immortal Palace tier might be killed by these unexpected dangers. Thus, they were all incredibly careful as they ventured forward. They would check the surroundings again and again even for the simple task of plucking some saintly medicine. At Ling Han and the Empress cultivation, the use of saintly medicines was simply to help them accumulate more origin power. Meanwhile, they could use celestial medicines to aid their comprehension of regulations. However, the effects of saintly medicines were already minimal, and they would need to ingest a huge amount of it to see any tangible benefit. A dozen or so days passed, and they finally managed to exit the vast stretch of plain. They arrived at the foot of a mountain, though this wasn't the volcano that released blood dragon stones. Gazing ahead, that volcano still appeared to be far away in the unreachable distance. It was truly difficult to determine how far away the volcano genuinely was. Anyhow, there was a palace atop the mountain before them. Ling Han had researched the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm before, so he knew that this palace was called Ascending Dragon Palace. Why was this mystery realm called Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm? In fact, this was related to the Ascending Dragon Palace. According to legends, this was one of the few palaces in the Hidden Dragon Mystery Realm that hadn't been destroyed. More accurately, it was a structure that had suffered relatively little damage. The Ascending Dragon Palace was most likely a location for examining the disciples of the Celestial King tier force. Moreover, it was for examining those at the Severing Mundane tier. Because the formations were still relatively intact, they could still be triggered by those who entered. If one managed to successfully pass the examination, they would be able to obtain some rewards. In the past, those who had entered the Mystery Realm had occasionally obtained some cultivation techniques. Almost 99% of these had come from the Ascending Dragon Palace. Otherwise, after countless years of plunder, how could there still be any treasures left in the Mystery Realm? When traversing through the plain, everyone's path would have been different. After arriving here, however, everyone would be gathered together once again. This was a location that one had to pass. At the same time, it was also a land of huge opportunities that no one could avoid. Far away in the distance, a large white rabbit nibbled on a carrot as it used its ruby-red eyes to gaze at Ling Han. It then cracked a slight grin, and a sinister expression spread across its wolf face. Chapter 1807, Shameless Sneak Attack. People gathered from all different directions, and they started to climb the mountain before them. After reaching this place, even elites at the Immortal Palace tier wouldn't be able to advance without a suit of blood dragon armor. The fire particles here were far too powerful, and they would kill anyone who wasn't wearing blood dragon armor. However, Ling Han was an exception. He possessed the Nine Heavens flame, and he also possessed the flame control technique. Thus, this place didn't pose any danger to him whatsoever. Instead, it was much like a playground. He wasn't wearing a suit of blood dragon armor, yet the others wouldn't be able to see this. Instead, they would think that he was wearing the suit of armor underneath his clothes. If they discovered the truth, however, they would all be transfixed with shock and disbelief. After all, what kind of freak could stand here without wearing a suit of blood dragon armor? Even Immortal Palace tier elites couldn't achieve such a feat. Ling Han, die, someone roared. Ling Han glanced over, only to see someone charging over with a staff. The symbols on the staff were all glowing, and they were radiating with a formidable aura as the staff smashed down at his head. This person seemed extremely unfamiliar. However, his cultivation was extraordinary, and it was clear that he was a fourth Severance elite. His battle prowess was supreme, and even if he hadn't reached the level of King tier, he was definitely very close to doing so. Anyhow, this person clearly wasn't attacking Ling Han on a whim. Instead, he had been waiting for him for a long time. Not only had he activated the full power of his pseudo-celestial tool, but he had even unleashed a formidable secret technique that formed an image of heaven and earth behind him. The auras of yin and yang circulated through this image. As his staff slammed down, it was as if heaven and earth were about to be obliterated. Perhaps even Luo Changfeng and Zai Bingyun could only retreat in the face of such a ferocious attack. In their haste, they definitely wouldn't be able to muster enough battle prowess to rival this attack. After all, this was a sneak attack against an unprepared enemy. Ling Han couldn't help but feel slightly infuriated. If his opponent had challenged him head-on, he wouldn't have viewed them in contempt no matter what. In fact, he might even spare them if he won. But a sneak attack? Boom! The person charged over, and his staff arrived before he had even reached Ling Han. The inky black staff smashed toward Ling Han's head, and it was clear that the person yearned to kill Ling Han in a single strike. The Empress humphed coldly, and she was just about to counterattack. However, Ling Han placed a hand on her shoulder, and this dissolved her urge to charge forward. Ling Han slowly looked up. Pa! He caught the iron staff with a single hand. Boom! This was a devastating collision, and a ripple of shock waves shot through Ling Han's body before bursting into the surrounding space. The shock waves were far too powerful, yet thanks to his freakish physique, they weren't able to injure him at all. In fact, the destructive shock waves hadn't been able to enter his body, and they had only rippled across the surface of his skin. There was a deafening rumble, and the area where Ling Han was standing instantly caved in. At the same time, a web of fractures spread into the surroundings. A swirl of violent aura threw dust into the air as it radiated into the distance. The nearby cultivators couldn't help but stop to gaze at the commotion. They raised their brows, and expressions of astonishment spread across their faces. Ling Han had actually blocked that earth-shattering attack head-on? Is he a fucking human? Even Ling Han's assailant was stunned upon seeing this. He definitely hadn't imagined that Ling Han would be so powerful. One had to realize that he had already prepared this strike for an extremely long time. Moreover, he was attacking an unsuspecting target, so he should have been able to crush Ling Han without any doubt. Ling Han humphed before pulling with his hand, causing the iron staff to crash toward him. At the same time, his assailant was forced to stumble over along with his staff. His expression changed drastically, and he frantically shot back in retreat. At this moment, he simply wanted to flee. Trying to escape? Ling Han asked. He unleashed his aura. Boom! This aura was like a tsunami, and it caused the limbs of his assailant to shudder, stopping him in his tracks. Heaven's might. This technique was relatively ineffective against King Tears. However, his assailant hadn't reached such a level yet, so he was naturally affected by the overwhelming Heaven's might. Although he was only affected for a split second, this was already enough for Ling Han. Ling Han dashed over and threw a punch as he did so. Pa! The man's head exploded into bits of broken flesh and brain. This was an extremely brutal and bloody scene. Pung! Ling Han activated his origin power protective barrier, stopping the blood and broken flesh from striking his body. He then swept his cold gaze across the surroundings, with his silent warning easily understood by everyone present. This was the fate for those who dared to target him. Upon catching his gaze, all of the nearby cultivators involuntarily lowered their heads. They didn't dare to make eye contact with him. Even those who were secretly checking out the Empress didn't dare to look at her anymore. This person was far too powerful, and he was also far too merciless. That assailant was from the Qianzhao clan, right? Ling Han, how audacious. You actually dared to kill my subordinate, a young man said with a cold humph as he stepped forward. He was wearing a yellow robe that was decorated with the embroidery of 100 lively beasts, each of which was radiating with a terrifying and vicious might. Ling Han glanced at him, and asked, "Can't they be killed?" "My subordinate simply wanted to spar with you," the young man replied. "Yet, you actually killed him with such ruthlessness. You're taking things too far." Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle and say, "You're calling his sneak attack a request for sparing? Your shamelessness truly knows no bounds." "Oh, that's right, I've forgotten to ask for your name." Come, tell me who you are." Anger flashed across the young man's face, and he said with a humph, "The Qianzhao clan's Qianzhao Yang." "Oh, it's that dogsh*T clan again," Ling Han said in disdain. For some reason, he had an inherent dislike for the name of this clan. He would feel angry every time he heard the mention of it. Woof! The large black dog was extremely displeased upon hearing this, and he immediately lunged over to bite Ling Han. "Brat, your tongue is so toxic." Ling Han dashed aside with a smile, and said, "There are good people and bad people, so there are naturally good dogs and bad dogs as well. Don't make a connection with yourself every time I mention something to do with dogs. It's as if you're eager to let others know that you're a scheming and mischievous dog." The large black dog was enraged upon hearing this, and he started to snap his jaws as he chased after Ling Han. Qianzhao Yang's expression darkened. He was one of the potential successors of the Qianzhao clan, and his status was, in fact, even higher than that of Qianzhao Gao. Moreover, he was at the peak stage of the fourth severance, and he could already advance to the dividing soul tier. It was only because he wanted to enter the hidden dragon mystery realm one more time that he had suppressed his urge to advance. "You people actually dare to ignore me? Fuck! You're seeking death." Qianzhao Yang roared as he resolutely launched an attack. Although his subordinate had been insta-killed by Ling Han just then, he was also extremely confident that he could have achieved the same feat. Thus, he was completely unafraid of Ling Han. Of course, being unafraid was one matter, and he was still extremely wary of Ling Han's strength. Right now, he was unleashing this celestial technique with his full power. "Myriad sword technique," he roared as he patted his waist. Countless golden swords instantly shot forth, with each of them measuring 3 feet in length. There were at least 10,000 swords, and each of them was filled with a dense pattern of symbols. Moreover, the swords were arranged in some kind of formation, and they were all able to resonate with each other. Ling Han looked up with an expression of slight interest. He wasn't interested in the celestial technique, but he was rather interested in the treasured swords. They were all composed of 1-star pseudo-divine metal. To him, even 10-star pseudo-divine metal and level 20 godly metal were essentially the same thing. They were nothing more than materials for the divine demon's sword to engulf. However, he was still overjoyed to see so much pseudo-divine metal at once. This would be a fruitful harvest. With a flash, the Empress immediately dashed forward. She wasn't a delicate woman who needed the protection of a man. Instead, she was the peerlessly domineering Empress Luo Changfeng. Young lady, I don't want to hurt you, so hurry up and stand back. Qian Zhaoyang immediately shouted. The Empress was so beautiful that he couldn't bear to attack her. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.